This is cognitive behavioral therapy. Understanding and overcoming negative thoughts and behaviors. Written by Jade O'Brien. Published by Audiobook Nexus.
Introduction. When combined with behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy is more effective than medication alone. When a person becomes aware of or recognizes his own negative thinking and faulty beliefs as the major causes of his behavioral issue, he begins to think positively. The fact that he is aware of what is going on in him and intends to make a change demonstrates his positive thinking. This is a significant departure from his previous thought pattern. Because CBT is goal-oriented and action-oriented, both the therapist and the person with behavioral disorders collaborate equally in exploring and executing effective techniques that can challenge the individual's thinking and eventually lead to positive actions. CBT seeks to provide a holistic approach to mental health care by addressing thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that contribute to the development and maintenance of psychological issues. Simply put, CBT necessitates two basic activities: learning and acting on what you've learned. REBT is also an effective approach under the CBT umbrella because the person with the disorder becomes aware that he alone is responsible for changing his perception of things and situations in response to triggers that challenge his thinking. For the CBT treatment to be successful, the individual must be willing to commit to the treatment with a proactive approach and structure. To summarize, cognitive behavioral therapy can be effective not only for the treatment of various psychological disorders, but also for maintaining mental health through stress management. Adopting CBT can have long-term benefits, but care should be taken when choosing a therapist. This manual includes the following sections: CBT Fundamentals, Your Opinions Treatment Advantages, CTB-CBT Treatment Advantages, and Methods of CBT-CBT for Addiction Treatment CBT. For addiction treatment, CBT for addiction treatment, CBT techniques for overcoming panic, anxiety, depression, anger, and worry, putting CBT to work, specifically on anxiety, negativity, and stress, and much more. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, CBT. What exactly is CBT? Cognitive behavioral therapy arose from the combination of rational emotive behavioral therapy and cognitive therapy. Rational emotive behavioral therapy was founded on the premise that many of our negative emotional experiences are caused by our thoughts about the situations in which they occur rather than the situations themselves. This was one of the first types of therapy that looked at how our thoughts influence how we approach situations and deal with our emotions. Cognitive therapy aimed to address people's negative thought patterns about themselves and their surroundings. This therapy aims to alter undesirable behaviors and negative emotional states. Cognitive behavioral therapy combines the best of both worlds. It focuses on the way we think, the emotions we experience, and the resulting behavior. By focusing on how a person's thoughts can affect their emotions and cause predictable behaviors, one can begin to change their negative experiences by simply changing the way they think. It can be difficult to take the necessary steps to look at things in a more productive and beneficial way when you suffer from severe anxiety, fear, anger, or negative thought patterns. When you've tried everything but still find yourself experiencing negative emotions, defaulting to negative thought patterns, and having a negative attitude toward life, therapy can help you understand and recognize where and what causes you to fall into the negative process. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a type of talk therapy in which you examine current issues and work to overcome negative thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that arise in specific situations. This type of psychotherapy identifies the thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes that can prevent people from living fully happy and healthy lives. Cognitive behavioral therapy is goal-oriented and problem-specific, which means that the patient and therapist collaborate to identify specific events, situations, and thoughts that must be resolved. Realistic and attainable goals are established, and action steps are developed to help the patient overcome negative patterns. This type of therapy teaches people how to recognize negative thought patterns that don't help them solve problems. This makes you more aware of the psychological problems that negative thoughts can cause. It also addresses behaviors that can lead to psychological problems and assists individuals in learning more appropriate reactions. Individuals are also given a variety of tools and processes to help them develop more positive habits and coping skills in order to resolve negative thoughts, behaviors, and emotions rather than avoiding, suppressing, or hiding from them. Cognitive behavioral therapy has proven to be an effective method for many people suffering from mental health disorders to reclaim their lives. It provides a new way of thinking and dealing with difficult situations in the future. The session teaches you techniques and methods for shifting your negative thoughts to positive ones, as well as how to apply these techniques in any situation where you feel strong negative emotions. This is accomplished through a process of rewiring and reprogramming the brain in order to break the cycle of negative patterns and behaviors and implement positive and beneficial patterns and behaviors. Many people are hesitant to participate in this type of therapy because it is often perceived as superficial, and many of the techniques come across as corny. But it can be extremely beneficial when approached with an open mind and a genuine desire to improve your life. This is due to the impact that this type of therapy can have on the brain. Cognitive behavioral therapy alters the way neurons communicate with one another. The rewiring within these neural networks causes this change in neuron communication. Neural networks are specific communication lines that are organized into groups based on topics, themes, thoughts, situations, and emotions. Cognitive therapy assists you in first focusing your attention on a specific network, strengthening some neuronal bonds while weakening others, resulting in the loss of neural networks. When you start paying attention to more positive thoughts, you pay attention to the neural networks associated with those positive thoughts. But these thoughts must be specific. If you want to think of yourself more positively, you must concentrate on what you want to feel better about. This takes practice because your mind will frequently return to negative thoughts because these neural networks are stronger than positive ones. Positive thought networks will grow and become stronger as you pay more attention to them, while negative thought networks will begin to weaken. Giving more attention to positive thoughts over time will cause the negative networks to fade away. If the network is not used, there is no need for it, and it is decommissioned. This is the ultimate goal of cognitive behavioral therapy, to identify the networks to which you are currently paying attention and refocus that attention in order to strengthen the more positive networks. How does CBT function? Cognitive behavioral therapy works by changing your thought patterns in the hopes of improving your mood and overall quality of life. While CBT is theoretical, real-world applications have shown a high rate of success. As a result, CBT is a popular therapeutic approach used by many counselors and psychologists with their patients. CBT is based on the idea that your thoughts have a strong influence on your emotions. What you think has a significant impact on how you feel. Even a single thought can cause you to experience a violent burst of emotion. Because humans are thought to think at least 70,000 thoughts per day, that means you experience at least 70,000 bursts of emotion throughout the day. Negative emotions, such as sadness and anger, are thought to be triggered by negative thoughts. If you have negative thoughts frequently, you will experience nearly constant bursts of negative emotion throughout the day. If you experience more negative emotions than positive emotions, your overall mood will be lower. CBT holds that repeatedly subjecting yourself to negative thoughts and feelings leads to emotional suffering. When you are in a constant state of emotional pain, your life can become complicated. Because your constant low mood influences the chemicals in your brain, you can develop mental illnesses such as depression, anger, and anxiety. Life is much more difficult for people suffering from mental illnesses because mental illness causes poor judgment and physical symptoms such as fatigue. If your low mood and negative thoughts are constantly zapping your will to live and your ability to function, you may not be able to live a fulfilling life. However, you do not have to suffer as a result of your thoughts. It may not appear so, but your thinking is completely at your disposal. You have command of your thoughts. If they appear to be out of control, it is simply because you have not developed the necessary strength to control your thoughts. This is where CBT can truly assist you. This therapy method teaches you how to control your thoughts. You can use this control to make your thoughts more positive and to reject negative thoughts that bring you down. If you are more optimistic, you can begin to heal your emotional wounds and recover from your mental problems. Consider how good you'd feel if you had 70,000 bursts of positive emotion instead of negative emotion throughout the day. Consider how wonderful life will be. CBT is a goal-oriented therapy. It encourages you to make firm commitments to change your life. Rather than sitting around feeling miserable, you are encouraged to identify problems in your life and then find solutions. Thus, CBT empowers you to change your mind and solve your problems simply by changing your thinking. Instead of focusing on how awful you feel about a breakup or problems at work, you can learn to focus on how to improve your relationship or work. Overcoming and removing problems from your life will also increase your positive thinking because you will have fewer stressful burdens on your mind. Randomized controlled trials have demonstrated that CBT works. Several studies have been conducted on patients who received CBT and patients who did not receive CBT to determine the difference in mental health that the patients experienced. The findings were then combined and analyzed to arrive at the conclusion that, in plain English, CBT works. Patients who received CBT recovered from their mental illnesses faster than those who did not. CBT has the ability to change people's thinking and treat mental disorders. Dr. David M. Allen, a psychoanalyst, attacked CBT 5 years ago as a simplistic approach that only treats simple problems. Unfortunately, Dr. Allen underestimated CBT. CBT works, even if it is simplistic, according to studies. Perhaps the best approach to the complex issue of mental illness is a simplistic one. CBT also addresses very serious issues. Thoughts' emotional havoc has serious consequences, such as mental illness, and CBT addresses these issues. By dismissing CBT as a silly new fad, you are passing up an excellent method of healing. You may be skeptical after reading all of this CBT theory. CBT sounds amazing, but it must be a lot of work. How are you going to do it all by yourself? CBT Fundamentals. The origins of CBT. Behavioral therapy, in general, has been practiced since the early 1900s. Skinner, Watson, and Pavlov are three well-known pioneers of various forms of behavioral therapy. Psychiatrists who study behaviorism believe that an individual's behaviors can be predicted, measured, trained, and even changed with some work with a program such as cognitive behavioral therapy. Although behavioral therapy studies began in the early 1900s, they have evolved and developed many new techniques since then. Different types of behavioral therapy first became popular after in the 1940s, when many war veterans had to deal with difficult emotional transitions when returning home from duty. The field of therapy suddenly saw an increase in the demand for a type of short-term therapy that could effectively help people cope with common mental health conditions caused by war, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. Behavioral therapies were suddenly used to treat a much wider range of conditions than just emotional disorders caused by combat. These same therapeutic aspects and techniques were able to be transferred into other types of therapy and used to treat a wide range of disorders, conditions, and mental health issues. The specific development of cognitive therapies began in the early 1900s with Alfred Adler, an Austrian psychotherapist. Though Adler established the foundation for cognitive therapies, much of the further development of the therapies were done by another psychologist, Albert Ellis, an American psychologist who developed the concept of rational emotive behavior therapy studied and was inspired by Adler's work, E.B. Rational emotive behavior therapy was developed in the 1950s and is now regarded as one of the earliest known forms of cognitive psychotherapy. Rational emotive behavior therapy is almost entirely based on the idea that an individual's emotional problems and stresses are frequently caused by negative thoughts, resulting from a specific event rather than from that specific event itself. The notion that an individual's condition could be caused by thoughts generated after a specific event, rather than the event itself, was initially controversial, but it eventually became the basis for other therapeutic developments and studies. Albert Ellis was a strong supporter and promoter of the value of behavioral therapies. Albert Ellis said the following about his research into various types of behavioral therapies and their effectiveness in treating multiple mood and emotional disorders. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a concept developed in the 1960s by a psychiatrist named Aaron Beck. Aaron Beck was a psychiatrist at the University of Pennsylvania who was performing psychoanalysis on several of his patients when he noticed that most of them seemed to be having an internal dialogue during their therapy sessions. An internal dialogue is a personal conversation that a patient appears to have with themselves that is often not audible or presented to other people. If a patient shares their internal dialogue with another, it is often only a very small portion of what is going on in their head. The following is an example of internal dialogue that a patient may have had during a therapy session. He's been very quiet today. Perhaps your therapy isn't going so well. I'm doing my best to be honest about my feelings and thoughts. You've never been good with words. According to the above example of internal dialogue that may exist within a person's mind during therapy, they may only share a small portion of "I am often bad at communicating with others" with their therapist and may even begin to feel increasingly anxious as a result of these negative inner thoughts. Aaron Beck, a psychiatrist, was among the first to study and report on the critical link that exists between an individual's thoughts and emotions. Beck became well known for his belief that a patient's ability to identify their emotions was half the battle in resolving these negative and sometimes harmful emotions. Throughout his psychiatric career, Beck designed and carried out numerous experiments on his patients in order to test psychoanalytic concepts related to depression. Aaron Beck may have had a significant impact on the increasing popularity of cognitive therapies in the 1960s. As a result, numerous empirical studies have been conducted on how an individual's cognition affect their personal emotions, behaviors, and actions. Many refer to the growing popularity and study of cognitive behaviors and therapies as the cognitive revolution. Behavioral therapies have been very successful in treating a wide range of neurotic disorders since their introduction and further research in the 1900s, especially in the 1950s and 1960s. Despite their success in treating neurotic disorders, behavioral therapies have not been successful in curing depression. Cognitive behavioral therapy has been the subject of numerous scientific studies since its inception in the 1960s, as it applies to the treatment of a wide range of psychological issues. Despite being developed in the 1960s, cognitive behavioral therapy became increasingly popular in the 1990s and continues to grow in popularity today. Cognitive behavioral therapy is not the same as it was when it was first developed in the 1960s. Cognitive behavioral therapy methods are frequently combined with other types of cognitive and behavioral therapies today. Multimodal therapy, pharmacological therapy, reality therapy, cognitive processing therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, integrative psychotherapy, and acceptance and commitment therapy are some other common types of therapies that are often combined with cognitive behavioral therapy to achieve greater success. Your ideas. Negative feelings. Negative thoughts are not all the same. Work on correctly identifying the type of thoughts you're having by categorizing them using some of the distinctions listed below. Blaming. It can be extremely difficult to change your situation if you become a passive victim of circumstance. Blaming others for our problems can destroy relationships and rob us of our personal power. You are also powerless to change if you do not accept responsibility. How was I supposed to know that? And that wouldn't have happened if... Are examples of blaming thoughts. Always, never. Thinking in absolutes and categorizing your opinions into extremes is both self-defeating. Words like everyone and always or never and none are common in these types of thoughts. A constant need for approval, being a perfectionist, and believing that achieving something makes you value can all lead to black or white thinking. Take some time to examine any irrational beliefs you may have. Aim to achieve a more realistic balance between your actual and ideal selves. They never listen to me. I'm the only one who takes care of things, and I'll never get a raise are examples of such thoughts. Concentrating on the negative. A work evaluation would be an example of focusing on the negative. Your manager could give you 9, 10 excellent marks, detailing everything that's great about the work you're doing and making a few notes on one area that could use improvement. When you focus on the negative, you are more likely to focus on the one thing that needs improvement rather than the 9 excellent things. When we allow negative thoughts to flourish, we can end up feeling bad about ourselves, resenting our bosses, and eventually allowing it to affect our work. Seek out the positive and allow your thoughts to assist you in finding more balance and optimism in difficult situations. It's just as bad to generalize. It had been a bad day. Is your entire day bad, or do you only remember the bad parts? This is a sign of depression that you should be aware of. Look for things you enjoyed doing during the day and challenge yourself to find a few. Consider your emotions. Our emotions are extremely complex and are usually deeply rooted in traumatic memories. Feelings aren't always accurate either. Examine any strong negative feelings you have. Is there evidence to back them up? Are there valid reasons for this? These kinds of thoughts usually begin with, I feel, such as I feel stupid or I feel like they hate me. Telling fortune. Negatively predicting the outcome of a situation can have a significant impact on how you feel. We all have the ability to change. So just because you have previously behaved in a certain manner does not imply that you must continue to do so in the future. Don't prevent yourself from changing because you don't believe it's possible. For example, you may be thinking, I never make new friends at work events. I never have. Just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean you can't. This way of thinking can lead to inaction, which is when you stop having experiences and participating in life because you believe you already know how things will turn out. Remember, if you could predict the future, you'd be a billionaire right now. Guilt is a negative emotion that can lead you to do things you don't want to do. Be careful not to use guilt to motivate or punish yourself, and don't overextend yourself when making commitments and promises. Guilt can be sneaky and destructive. Although distinct from shame, guilt, if irrational or not absolved, can eventually lead to shame. These emotions have the opposite effect on empathy and self-improvement. It's easy to beat yourself up and prolong these types of thoughts, and we tend to ignore them by rationalizing our actions. These kinds of thoughts are repetitive and elicit increasingly intense emotions the longer we sit with them. Thoughts containing the words have to, must, should are commonly associated with guilt. When we procrastinate, we can also experience negative guilty thoughts. We frequently do not want to do things simply because we believe we must. One effective way to combat these is to change the phrase I have to spend more time at home to I want to spend more time at home. Mind reading and projection. These negative thoughts have the ability to manipulate your mind and are very common in people who suffer from social anxiety. Mind-reading thoughts usually lead you to believe that others are passing judgment on you. Projecting transfers your own thoughts to others, convincing us that they are thinking the same thing we are. We never truly know what others are thinking unless they tell us. Believing you are a mind reader can harm our relationships with others, especially with our significant others. It's easy to assume that you know what someone is thinking based on our previous experiences, but we must be careful to communicate clearly with others. When we make assumptions, we can mistake someone's negative expression for something personal when it could be something completely unrelated, such as them thinking their lunch isn't agreeing with them. Labeling. When we attach negative labels to people, we can lose our ability to deal with them rationally and recognize them as unique individuals. This is also true when we label ourselves negatively. For example, if you think of someone as arrogant, you're likely to mentally group that person with all the other arrogant people you've ever met. Be cautious of automatically assigning distinctions to people based on a situation. Most of the time, someone's behavior in a specific situation isn't the only characteristic about them. How would you feel if someone thought the same of you? Challenge any preconceived notions and work to uncover a person's true personality. Customization. We will never fully comprehend why people do what they do. Personalizing others' behavior and events with negative explanations can make us feel terrible and distance us from everything else. These kinds of thoughts can cause us to become fixated on what is happening only to ourselves, blinding us to the bigger picture. Assigning personal significance to simple events, such as a coworker who did not greet you, can lead us to believe that they are angry or no longer like us. Personalizing thoughts go hand in hand with catastrophic thoughts. Getting negative feedback on something doesn't mean you can't improve or that it calls your worth into question. Our attachment to experiences can be completely impersonal and does not always necessitate a response from you. Break free from this type of self-imposed seclusion by allowing what is to go about its business. When you expose many of these thoughts to a more rational light, you may come to believe that you're just lying to yourself. Just because you've held a belief for a long time doesn't make it true. The majority of negative thinking is automatic and goes unnoticed. Examine what's true and what's not with a critical eye. Write these thoughts down and respond to them. Take control of your moods and remove their hold on you. Develop that inner voice to keep these negative thought patterns at bay. You can accomplish this by observing a negative thought and determining which type it most closely resembles. Attempt to change the thought to something more realistic. "You never listen to me," for example, would be identified as a always never type of thought. And we could change it to, "I get upset when you don't listen to me. But I know you have listened to me in the past and will again." Begin to develop positive thought patterns by approaching life with more confidence and productivity. Using your 5 senses is a simple exercise you can do to focus on developing positive thought patterns and associations. Make a list of the happiest times in your life. Describe them as thoroughly as possible. What were you doing? What music was playing? What colors were around you? Smells, people, setting, and so on. Making these positive memory paths will strengthen your bonds. This will motivate you to act lovingly and in accordance with your feelings. Aside from the bad moods and thought patterns that most of us experience, there are physiological and mental health issues that can seriously affect people. Medical intervention, typically antidepressants or herbal supplements such as St. John's wort, may be required but should always be discussed with your doctor and psychiatrist. The mind-body relationship. Consider the mind-body link. Our bodies, feelings, minds, and spirits are all interconnected, and our mind-body wellness is linked to how we deal with stress. If we don't feel good physically, the chances of feeling good mentally are slim. Listen to your body and respect it by providing it with what it requires to function properly. There are simple steps you can take to improve your physical and mental health. Take note of your energy levels. What activities drain you and which restore you? Create a healthy balance by nurturing and caring for all aspects of yourself. Get outside and move! Endorphins make us happy. Being active increases the amount of oxygen available to our bodies and the amount of blood flow to our brains. Physical activity improves sleep by normalizing melanin levels and promotes a healthy appetite by increasing metabolism. This does not imply that you must perform an intense workout routine every day. Rather, we should aim for at least 3 times a week for 20 minutes. Concentrate on aerobic exercises like walking, weightlifting, or anything else that keeps your heart rate up and the flow of oxygen to your muscles moving. Find what you like and make it a fun event. Every day, walk, cycle, or engage in some form of physical activity. Yoga, which combines breathing exercises, physical exertion, and stretching, can be extremely beneficial for people suffering from mental health issues. How to reclaim your mind. You can begin to replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts once you feel comfortable challenging them, and may even begin to do so automatically without needing to write them down. Simply questioning your cognitive distortions can help you get rid of them. You may have noticed a decrease in the number and frequency of them. The next step in reframing your thinking is to transform them into something positive. Examine your negative thought log. Do you notice any trends? It could be a recurring thought or a series of thoughts on the same subject. Make a new list with this information. Replace each negative statement with a positive statement. It should be a much more positive version while remaining true to the original statement. If this occurs, your brain is less likely to accept it as true. When depression is at its worst, your brain does everything it can to keep you from feeling better. It guards and protects your positive feelings rather than allowing you to experience them. It's a way of avoiding pain and disappointment because if you're not optimistic about something, you can't be disappointed if it doesn't happen. That, however, is what keeps us trapped in the cycle of depression. Our goal is to break that cycle so you can start experiencing the good things again. As an example, suppose one of your negative thoughts is that you aren't attractive enough. Your opposing statement should not be something extreme, such as "I am the most beautiful creature on the planet," because your depressed mind will immediately dismiss that as unrealistic. Consider the following. Beauty is subjective and unique to each individual. People find me attractive, and I have many qualities that I appreciate about myself. This still allows your mind to retain some of its protective habits. You're not directly contradicting it, just introducing a new way of viewing the situation. Do this for any of your thought patterns, especially the ones that are particularly powerful. Begin recording your opposing positive statements in your log every day. As you progress, you'll need to mix things up a bit so they don't become rote tasks to be repeated. You can gradually increase your level of optimism. As you continue to challenge your distortions and seek out more optimistic viewpoints, you will discover that you can truly believe more positive statements. You can also choose positive statements that are unrelated to the negative ones, but are still debatable. Consider times when you handled something well or with grace. If you consider yourself clumsy, if you consider yourself to be unintelligent, consider times when you solved a problem no one else could or learned something quickly. Your rebuttal would then be something like, "I can think of these specific times when this wasn't true," proving that it comes from faulty logic. If one of your distortions is to discount the positives or use a mental filter, these exercises may be especially difficult for you. It will take practice to recognize and celebrate the positives. Take something positive someone says about you at face value. Don't look for hidden agendas or evidence of deception. Work on minimizing any negatives and focusing on the positives. Write down any situations in which you find yourself trying to minimize or ignore the positives and make a column for negatives and another for positives. Fill in the blanks with whatever comes to mind for each, being completely honest with yourself. More often than not, you'll discover that the positives outnumber the negatives, and you may discover some that you didn't notice before. Find the good in every situation you've written about in your journal, not just the ones that directly contradict your distortions, but any positives you can find. When you see a natural disaster on the news, look for the people who are assisting others. Those individuals are a ray of hope in a dark story. Apply the same logic to every situation you encounter. If you were chastised at work for something, but one of your coworkers cheers you up and says you'll do better next time, the positives of this situation could be that you learned an important lesson. that your coworker's kindness made you happy, and that your coworker confirmed some of your good qualities. One of the most important aspects of our mood is how we talk to ourselves. These are statements made with cognitive distortions, such as, "I'm not good enough," or "I can't do this." To begin healing, you must alter your self-talk. Consider your self-talk and whether you would say such things to a close friend. You probably wouldn't. Allow yourself to be your own best friend. Begin to transform your negative self-talk into a positive attitude. If you're worried about failing a test, treat yourself like a friend and remind yourself that you can study, you already know the material, and you'll pass the test. Remember the cognitive distortion of the double standard. It frequently applies to how you speak to yourself. Even if you aren't actively trying to stop a negative thought, you should have some positive affirmations prepared. Take some time in your journal to write down all of your positive qualities. You can be general, such as writing that you are intelligent, or you can be more specific with scenarios and situations that you have successfully handled in the past. Make a simple statement that you can tell yourself from each one. Writing these down will help you see everything that is positive about yourself, and having them ready in your mind or on the journal page will allow you to pull from them when you need some more positivity. When we are depressed, it is very easy to berate ourselves, but we must remember our positive qualities to avoid falling into that cycle. Positive affirmations can also be defined as talking yourself up or telling yourself how wonderful you are. However, there is a possibility that this will backfire. If your statements are too outrageous, you will not believe them even if you are saying them. It's more important to focus on your progress than on making yourself sound perfect. "I am completely happy and successful, and nothing can bring me down," appears to be false. Your brain will choose to ignore it, which can lead to even more negativity. Instead, concentrate on your work. "I'm getting better and making progress every day. I've made positive changes to myself." Talk. This is more realistic and recognizes your efforts thus far. It's a win-win situation. Here are some questions to ask yourself in your journal to help you choose some positive affirmations for yourself. What are your favorite aspects of yourself? Make a list of everything, big and small. Oh, what do you consider your strongest points? What situations do you consistently handle well? How so? What positive qualities do you believe others notice in you? What are some recent compliments you've gotten? What effect did they have on you? Make a list of everything that makes you happy, no matter how insignificant. What piques your interest? Do you give back to the community? How so? What are your personal morals and values? You can also use positive affirmations to state what you intend to do and how you intend to feel. "I will wake up tomorrow morning feeling rested and energized," for example. Many people are unaware of how powerful words can be. In healthcare settings, you may notice that doctors and nurses frequently use the word discomfort rather than pain. This is due to the fact that discomfort is milder, and asking a patient about their pain levels may actually make them feel worse. Simply planting an idea in your head with specific wording increases your chances of experiencing it. This is why it is critical to avoid negative self-talk. Even if you say them in a lighthearted, self-deprecating tone, you're still planting that seed. In your daily life, practice using gentler language. Use dislike rather than hate, bothered rather than angry, upset rather than despaired, and so on. Begin by counteracting any negativity with positivity to help you learn to see the bright side of things. Get past any negative thoughts you have about yourself or your life. When you are in a situation where you find something or someone distasteful, take a moment to pause and look for some positive qualities. Choose 5 positive things to say and keep them in the forefront of your mind. Finding humor in seemingly negative situations can be a powerful tool for thinking more positively. Some people will probably find it easier than others, but everyone can usually find something to laugh about. There may be something amusing in the situation itself. or you may find it amusing later if you react negatively at the moment. Along with looking for humor in your own life, look for things that make you laugh whenever possible. Watch a stand-up comedy or look up jokes on the internet. Laughter is a physical force that can alter your mood. Even if you're having a bad day, laughing can make you feel much better. Another good way to start noticing more of the positive is to practice daily gratitude. Many people prefer to write this in their journals so that their thoughts are more fully formed and they can keep a running list of things for which they are grateful. Write down 5 things you are grateful for in your life at a set time each day. Choosing the morning will give you a fresh start to your day, while choosing the evening will allow you to reflect on your day. However, you should choose whatever works best for you and allows you to focus on what you're writing in peace and quiet. The things for which you are grateful can be anything. They can be significant, such as your friend's love. They can also be smaller, such as the ice cream you had after lunch today. They can concentrate on your thoughts and emotions, or on more physical issues. If you're having a bad day, they could be something like, "I'm grateful that tomorrow will come soon and I can start over." Make your gratitude entries at least slightly different each day. If you are overly repetitive, your mind will start to dismiss the items. They will become something rote that you will write down automatically without much thought. You should concentrate on these items and how they improve your life. They should have some effect on you that improves your day, no matter how small or simple they are. Here is some journalism prompts to help you find gratitude and positivity in your life. Hey, make a list of 20 things that make you happy. Have you recently faced a problem that you successfully resolved? Describe the problem and your solution. Make a list of everything you did well today. Can you think of a time when you made a positive difference in someone else's life? Hey, who is a positive influence in your life? And why? Becoming an optimist is the key to long-term happiness. Depression typically makes us pessimists, always seeing the negatives and expecting bad outcomes. In their daily lives, these two groups explain things differently. Pessimists are more likely to notice negative events than positive ones. They'll see outside uncontrollable forces as the source of good and themselves as the source of bad. Optimists, on the other hand, focus on the positive scenarios and dismiss the negative ones as isolated incidents. They attribute their success to their abilities and frame of mind. Cognitive behavioral therapy can help you master your emotions. Even if you believe you fully understand and comprehend the impact your emotions have on your life, there is one aspect over which you may not have complete control. Negative thoughts can be extremely depressing. These thoughts are frequently formed and reinforced by years of negative self-talk. You may feel as if you are not meant to be happy if you have such a strong connection with the negative dialogue in your mind, even if you try desperately to eliminate it. These thoughts are what can make it difficult for you to fully control your emotions. This book will help you understand how negative thoughts affect your emotions, how they are hardwired in your brain, and effective ways to reprogram these thought patterns so you can start living a happier life. Overthinking happens when you try to control and predict the outcome of a situation over which you have little control. While it is important to be able to solve and come up with solutions to things that cause negative emotional responses, there is a point at which this can be taken too far. Overthinking is more than just trying to come up with solutions. It is also constantly attempting to avoid potential mistakes and risks. You spend so much time and energy improving potential solutions and identifying every possible flaw that you never take action. Overthinking can leave you feeling stuck because you become so overwhelmed by all the what-ifs that you are unable to commit to finding a solution. This can lead to self-doubt and almost always leads to missing out on the more joyful moments. Because they all stem from productive ways to change negative emotions and thoughts, each of these negative thinking patterns can be difficult to identify. When problem solving, self-reflection, and seeing things from another perspective are taken to extremes and no action is taken. These methods cause more harm. Negative emotions are the same as negative thoughts. While they can make us feel worse, if we look at them differently and understand what is causing the root of the pattern, we can begin to learn from them. You can start to understand your negative thoughts by doing the following. Examining your emotions. Because your emotions are the result of your thoughts, paying attention to emotions can help you understand what you're thinking. Certain situations, triggers, or people can always cause you to think more negatively or positively. Begin to notice when each emotion, both positive and negative, arises and record your thoughts before, during, and after the experience. During this process, you will most likely notice patterns that cause you to feel more negative emotions as a result of negative thoughts. As you begin to notice your thoughts and the emotions that accompany them, ask yourself why. Why are you feeling that particular emotion? This will shed light on the thought process that led to them. Why do you believe this? Why do you have such negative feelings about yourself? Most of the time, these are assumptions that are not based on facts or truth, and there is often nothing to back up the thought process. Keep a journal of your responses so you can delve deeper into the true reason for each. Asking yourself why will help you figure out where these negative thoughts are coming from. There can be a variety of reasons for you to think negatively in any given situation. Even seemingly innocuous encounters can cause you to spiral into a negative thought pattern for no apparent reason. As you delve deeper and ask why, you will discover a plethora of reasons for your negative thinking. When you have a list of possible reasons or assumptions, you can begin to investigate each one. When you have a negative thought, your brain works to provide evidence to back up the thought pattern, even if the evidence isn't entirely true. After reviewing your list, you can examine it objectively to determine what truth lies in each of the possibilities. To shift your thoughts from negative to positive, you must rephrase and redefine a new way of thinking. After that, you must take action to make your new thoughts a reality. When you finish this final step, you rewire your brain to find new supporting evidence for your new positive thought process, which starts to help you think more positively. Changing your thought pattern entails examining what causes you to default to negative patterns and then resolving the issues so that you can avoid these negative thoughts in the future. This is not something that many people can do on their own. While mindfulness, gratitude, a healthy lifestyle, and stress relieving activities can help you think more positively, they rarely help you resolve the source of your negative thoughts. Therapy is a useful and effective way for many people to truly understand and change their negative thought patterns. How does cognitive behavioral therapy assist in brain reprogramming? Individuals can use cognitive behavioral therapy to specifically identify their negative thought patterns. It then teaches them effective strategies for challenging these negative thoughts and shifting their focus to a more positive way of thinking. This therapy challenges the automatic thought patterns that people have formed over time. While it does highlight how past events and experiences can contribute to these negative patterns, the emphasis is primarily on the present moment and the most recent situations. Cognitive behavioral therapy assists individuals in clearly identifying their thoughts, identifying the triggers that lead to negative thoughts, and working to rewire the brain's connections to focus on more positive thoughts. As a result, many of the techniques sound corny or full of fluff. Gratitude, positive thinking, manifestation, and affirmations are all techniques used in this type of therapy. When used consistently, all of these techniques work. This consistency is how neural networks in the brain begin to strengthen. Repeating a positive affirmation every now and then will do little to strengthen your positive self-image neural networks if you are thinking negatively about yourself the majority of the time. While many of the techniques appear simple enough to execute, being dedicated and consistent can be difficult. Participating in this type of therapy will teach you how to recognize your negative thought patterns, how to specifically change these negative patterns to more positive ones, and how to strengthen your positive ones, and how to strengthen your positive inner dialogue. When you complete this process successfully, you will find it easier to overcome difficult situations and maintain a more positive outlook on life, regardless of the struggles or challenges you may be facing. What skills does behavioral therapy help you develop to help you get out of difficult situations? Individuals learn many ways to process emotions in a more healthy and proactive manner through cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy assists individuals in becoming more clear when identifying a problem, allowing them to set realistic and attainable goals for resolving these problems. The key to understanding what is causing the unhealthy emotional response is to identify the problem. Because many emotional responses are caused by our own perceptions and beliefs about a situation, cognitive behavioral therapies encourage patients to look at things from a different angle. This allows people to question assumptions, look at the facts of the situation, and avoid jumping to the worst-case scenario. Cognitive behavioral therapy assists you in developing the tools necessary to reframe your worldview. Most of the time, our interpretations of the world are skewed and begin with negative emotions. As a result, you will address issues in a way that will not help you resolve problems or move on from what is keeping you emotionally stuck. How behavioral therapy can help you gain control of your mental health by helping you overcome anxiety, anger, and fear. Negative thinking can result in a variety of mental health problems, ranging from depression and anxiety to drug or substance abuse. These conditions are frequently the result of allowing negative thoughts to take over your mind on a regular basis. Just one negative thought can open the door, and more negative thoughts usually follow. These build up, one on top of the other, until you have a pessimistic outlook on life and are trapped by your own untrue negative views of yourself. Controlling your negative thoughts gives you control over your mental health. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of many tools that can effectively assist you in changing your thought process. Cognitive therapy assists you in fully comprehending how your thoughts influence your emotions and behavior. A therapist can help you evaluate your own internal dialogue and identify where it stems from false beliefs. You are then given homework and advised to keep track of your progress from session to session. These homework assignments are intended to assist the individual in challenging their incorrect beliefs and finding ways to disprove them. The process causes the individual's incorrect beliefs to shift, and thus the negative experience that once overwhelmed them to shift. Because negative thought patterns fuel anxiety, anger, fear, and other negative emotions, changing these thought patterns can change how you experience these negative emotions. Cognitive behavioral therapy can make you feel more empowered, confident, and in control of your life. Through the process of self-awareness and self-reflection, you gain the necessary skills to confront negative emotions and turn them into positives. It can be difficult to decide whether or not to participate in cognitive behavioral therapy. When people decide that therapy is necessary to help them sort out their emotional issues, they frequently feel a great deal of shame. Consider the consequences of not participating in therapy if you are ashamed. If you allow shame to win, you are once again allowing your negative emotions to dictate your behavior, and you are also prioritizing the opinions of others over your own emotional and mental well-being. While it may be difficult to finally agree to therapy, and you may try to keep others from learning about it, the benefits can be life-changing. Therapy can finally help you see the puzzle pieces you've been missing. It can assist you in making previously unnoticed connections between your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. If you choose not to participate in therapy, you can almost always expect your life to remain in its current state. However, by agreeing to therapy, you are giving yourself a great chance of finally living a happy life. The advantages of CTB treatment. In this section, I'll go over the various advantages of cognitive behavioral therapy. To begin with, It is incredible that this single therapy can aid in the treatment of so many different conditions. As you gain a better understanding of cognitive behavioral therapy, you may wonder what it can be used to treat. Contrary to popular belief, cognitive behavioral therapy can be used to treat a wide range of conditions. It is also used as an adjunct therapy, in conjunction with other treatments, for a variety of diseases in order to help the client heal faster and improve their quality of life. The following are some of the most common conditions that can be helped by cognitive behavioral therapy. Among the numerous other conditions are depression, dysthymia, eating problems, abuse of substances, anxiety problems, personality flaws. Personality flaws are the problems with aggression, anger problems with aggression, anger problems. Chronic exhaustion, anger problems, chronic exhaustion, schizophrenia, and other psychotic disorders, muscle ache. Somatotropin imbalances, criminal conduct. According to research, cognitive behavioral therapy has been used successfully in the treatment of these conditions for a very long time. When compared to other therapies used to treat these conditions, cognitive behavioral therapy has shown higher response rates. This is why, in general, psychotherapists all over the world recommend cognitive behavioral therapy to their patients. The following are some of the most significant advantages of cognitive behavioral therapy. Aids in the reduction of depression and anxiety symptoms. Cognitive behavioral therapy is the most well-known treatment for depression. Numerous studies show that this therapy is effective in treating depression symptoms such as lack of motivation and hopelessness. This treatment is only temporary, but it reduces the likelihood of future relapses. It aids in the treatment of depression by facilitating changes in the person's thought process. As a result, they stop thinking negatively and try to be more positive. Cognitive behavioral therapy is used in conjunction with antidepressant medication. Some therapists also recommend it for postpartum depression patients. These are the most common conditions treated with cognitive behavioral therapy. In the last decade, depression has become a very common condition. As the stigma associated with mental illness fades, an increasing number of people are being diagnosed with it. The causes may differ, but the symptoms are mostly the same, and it has a negative impact on the person who is suffering from it. Depression can develop as a result of a traumatic event, or it can appear out of nowhere. Nonetheless, it is critical to validate this condition and provide the person with the assistance they require. Many people suffer from anxiety as a result of their hectic lifestyles. Cognitive behavioral therapy is extremely effective in treating both of these conditions and assisting the client in living a happier life. It aids in the treatment of personality disorders. Each person has a distinct personality that others recognize. Your personality is reflected in how you interact with others. Every person will have some positive traits as well as some negative traits. When a person exhibits more negative traits, their personality appears unappealing to those around them. As a result, they may face a variety of social issues. Cognitive behavioral therapy can assist in the improvement of such negative traits and the development of more positive traits that will benefit the individual and make them well. Liked by others. Cognitive behavioral therapy can be used to improve a person's overall personality as well as to treat a variety of personality disorders that are far more serious. Assists with the treatment of eating disorders. Eating disorders, according to research, have some of the strongest indicators of cognitive behavioral therapy. Today's society places a high value on appearance, which makes people more conscious of how they look and how much they eat. This is especially true for women worldwide. This is one of the factors that contribute to eating disorders. They may develop these disorders in order to lose weight or as a response to stress and anxiety. The majority of eating disorders fall into two categories. One type is when a person develops a proclivity to eat far more than is necessary. This can lead to the person becoming overweight and developing weight problems. The second type involves the person doing the opposite and eating too little. This can result in anorexia, or bulimia. It should be noted that if these conditions are not treated promptly, they can be fatal in the long run. The human body requires a healthy amount of food to function properly, and eating too much or too little can result in a variety of illnesses. There are also those who suffer from body dysmorphic disorder. This causes them to perceive their body differently than it is. Even if they are thin, they may look in the mirror and criticize themselves for being fat. You must understand that these eating disorders are strongly linked to mental health issues. Your brain is crucial in the development or prevention of such problems. When certain hormones in your body are out of balance, either type of eating disorder can develop. It is critical to identify the root cause of any eating disorder and assist the individual in overcoming it. This is where cognitive behavioral therapy can help, by identifying the root cause of a problem and then implementing techniques to help them overcome it. Cognitive behavioral therapy has proven to be extremely effective in treating eating disorders. It has aided in determining the underlying cause of such issues, as well as questions about why shape and weight are overvalued. Cognitive behavioral therapy can assist a person in maintaining healthy body weight. They will learn to control their urge to binge eat or to purge after eating. They will learn to feel less isolated and more at ease around foods that would normally trigger their unhealthy behavior. Exposure therapy teaches them to eat less even when their favorite food is right in front of them. Cognitive behavioral therapy is especially effective in treating bulimia nervosa patients. It also aids in the treatment of unspecified conditions. Anorexia is one of the most difficult eating disorders to treat, but research shows that cognitive behavioral therapy can help. Aids in the control of substance abuse and addictive behavior. No one is unfamiliar with substance abuse at this point. Drugs are too easily obtained, and people tend to abuse their privilege whenever they can. Anywhere you look, marijuana, meth, cocaine, and other such drugs can be obtained quite easily for a small sum of money. Going to clubs or even walking down some streets will expose you to dealers who will entice you to try these dangerous substances. Many people believe that it is acceptable to try it once, but it is well known that once is only the beginning of a habit. Most people are unable to control their consumption of such substances, and overdose deaths have become all too common in recent years. Using such drugs can cause a person's life to drastically change for the worse. It alters them, affects their bodies, and has a negative impact on their entire life. However, for those who seek assistance on time, there is a way to turn things around. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a well-known therapy used to assist addicts in overcoming their addiction. The exact approach will vary depending on the individual, but cognitive behavioral therapy can assist most addicts in overcoming such harmful addictions. They will learn to control their thoughts, resist urges, and take actions that are only good for them. And, while it will take some time, cognitive behavioral therapy will teach them how to say no to drugs. There is a lot of evidence that cognitive behavioral therapy can help people who are addicted to cannabis, opioids, alcohol, smoking, or even gambling. After the treatment, the skills taught during cognitive behavioral therapy will help these people control their impulses and avoid relapse. The behavioral approach outperforms all other treatments. Aids in the reduction of mood swings. Have you ever experienced extreme lows or highs? The majority of people will say yes. Everyone experiences mood swings, but not everyone experiences them in the same way. Your mood is your current mental state, and it influences how you feel and what you do. Sometimes you're in a good mood and feel very happy. You may feel very low and unhappy the next moment. If you suffer from mood swings, your emotional state may be quite unstable. The slightest provocation can cause you to become enraged and react negatively. It is critical for people to learn to control their emotions and process them properly. This will teach them how to react appropriately in various situations. One of the treatments that can help people deal with such mood swings and become more emotionally stable is cognitive behavioral therapy. Assists in psychosis treatment. Are you familiar with this expression? It is a state in which your mind begins to lose contact with reality. In this state, your mind is transported to another world filled with sounds or images that lull you into a brief but deep mental slumber. People suffering from psychosis often have little contact with others. Their mind tricks them into thinking in a way that is unhealthy for them. Psychosis is a more serious condition than you may realize. It has the potential to push a person in such a way that their normal way of life is completely altered and not for the better. Cognitive behavioral therapy is used to assist people suffering from psychosis. It is used to determine the underlying cause of this state of mind, and then the therapy assists them in establishing a routine that is more of a normal way of life. The client will gradually return to reality and leave their virtual world. It helps improve self-esteem and self-confidence. Many people struggle with low self-esteem or self-confidence. They may not have any serious mental illnesses, but having low self-esteem can lead to very negative and destructive thoughts. With the help of cognitive behavioral therapy, these thoughts are replaced with positive affirmations. This therapy teaches the individual better ways to deal with stressful situations and how to improve their interpersonal relationships. Cognitive behavioral therapy also motivates them to try new things. Cognitive behavioral therapy techniques will assist the individual in improving their communication skills and developing stronger relationships. Many other conditions can also be treated with cognitive behavioral therapy. Some people suffer from more than one condition at the same time. You should also be aware that while this therapy may not always be completely effective in treating someone, it does make a significant positive difference. That is why it is always worthwhile to try cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a much more practical treatment than most others, and it has helped many people over the years. CBT therapy. Panic attacks and cognitive behavioral therapy. Panic attacks, like other mental health issues, are triggered by a source of fear. They can occur in people of all ages, but they are more common in the lives of younger people who lack the life experience of adults to understand how to deal with a situation or to have a scale to use to determine the severity of a problem. This is why panic attacks are so common among teenagers. When it comes to treating panic attacks with CBT, the situation differs slightly from that of other mental health issues. The reason for this is that panic attacks render the body almost helpless in defending itself once they begin. This means that in order to use CBT or any other treatment method to help with panic attacks, the treatment of thoughts must begin before the panic attack itself. This is difficult because panic attacks are unpredictable. However, there is another option for dealing with this issue. The steps for dealing with panic attacks with CB are the same as we've previously described, except that this time, the decision to use these steps is critical. You must choose a time of day when you can complete these steps and then repeat the process every day at the same time. People are usually the most stressed in general when they are about to fall asleep and their mind begins to wander, thinking of all the bad things that have happened in life and all the opportunities that a person may have missed. This is a difficult mind to fall asleep to right before bed, which is why it is also the ideal time to take a moment right before bed and follow the CBT steps to analyze your thoughts. Go to bed as usual, except bring a notebook and a pen with you. Make yourself comfortable and begin analyzing every negative thought that normally enters your mind at this time. Focus on each thought, dissect it into its source, and what would happen if you followed it, and then replace that negative thought with a positive one. Do this for each thought until you've exhausted them. Your mind will then be empty not only of these negative thoughts, but also of its own analyzing, and it will decide that the best thing to do is to simply fall asleep. This before bedtime strategy is excellent for dealing with panic attack issues because it allows you to address all of your fears before your body has a chance to magnify them and turn them into a panic attacks. Consider this your most potent weapon. You literally have the ability to predict panic attacks, and you now have a way to deal with them before they occur. CBT advantages and methods. In today's society, doctors and psychiatrists are quick to prescribe psychotropic drugs, which frequently have dangerous negative side effects for any disorder caused by thought patterns. Would you try cognitive behavioral therapy if you were told there was a better, more secure way to treat and cure stress and mental disorders? CBT is a type of psychotherapy that emphasizes the importance of innate thoughts in determining how we act and feel. CBT is widely regarded as one of the most successful forms of psychotherapy to emerge in recent decades. CBT has been the subject of numerous scientific studies. CBT therapists investigate, and transform their specific thought patterns and reactions because they are what create our senses and determine our behaviors. When compared to patients who deal with difficult situations on their own, ECBT therapy improves patients' quality of life and helps them deal with stress better. What may surprise you about CBT as a fundamental basic theory is that extreme scenarios, interactions with various people, and negative events are rarely to blame for our bad moods and problems. CBT therapists, on the other hand, believe that the opposite is the case. Our reactions to events? The more things we tell ourselves about these events that are within our control end up affecting our quality of life. This is fantastic news because it shows that we can change ourselves. Using cognitive behavioral therapy, we can learn to change the way we feel, which changes how we see and deal with difficult situations. We are now better at detecting disruptive ideas that lead to stress, isolation, and depression, as well as being mentally obese and hesitant to change negative habits. When we can accurately and calmly begin looking at situations without distorting reality or incorporating limitations or fears, we will be able to understand just how to react appropriately to help us feel better in the long run in a way that makes us feel the most quickly in the long run. Here are some of the advantages of cognitive behavioral therapy. Reduces depression symptoms. CBT is one of the most effective and well-studied treatments for depression. CBT has been shown in studies to help patients overcome depressive symptoms such as rage and low drive. It also reduces their chances of relapse in the future. CBT is thought to be effective at completing tasks. It is well known for its ability to alleviate depression by altering cognition, feelings, which fuels vicious cycles of unwanted feelings and rumination. According to a study published in the journal Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Mood Disorders, CBT is protective against severe episodes of depression and can be used in addition to or instead of antidepressant medications. CBT has also shown promise as a treatment for postpartum depression and as an adjunct to drug treatment for bipolar patients. Additionally, preventative cognitive therapy, a type of CET, combined with antidepressants was found to benefit patients suffering from long-term depression. Even the 2018 human study examined 289 participants before randomly assigning them to PECT and antidepressants alone, or PSD with decreasing use of antidepressants after healing. The study discovered that clinical therapy combined with antidepressant treatment was superior to alcoholism treatment alone. Anxiety is reduced. CBT appears to have the potential to cure transmitted illnesses. CBT is showing promising results in treating transmissible illnesses such as panic disorders, obsessive-compulsive disorder, social anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder pressure disease. Overall, ECBT shows efficacy in both randomized controlled trials and naturalistic settings between patients with anxiety and therapists. Researchers discovered that CBT works well as an organic treatment for anxiety because it combines the following techniques: psychoeducation about the nature of fear and anxiety, self-monitoring of outward symptoms, bodily exercises, cognitive restructuring, for example, disconfirmation, Bodily exercises, cognitive restructuring. Image and in vivo experience of feared stimuli. Exposure therapy, weaning from unsuccessful safety signals and relapse prevention. Aids in the treatment of eating disorders. CBT has been shown to significantly aid in the treatment of the underlying psychopathology of eating disorders and to call into question the overvaluation of shape and weight. Furthermore, it can interfere with the use of sterile body weights, improve urge control, aid in the prevention of binge eating or purging, reduce feelings of isolation, and help patients gradually become comfortable with trigger food items or situations through exposure therapy. Cognitive therapy is now the treatment of choice for the two most common eating disorder diagnoses, bulimia nervosa and eating disorders not otherwise defined, EDNOS. There is also evidence that it may aid in the healing of approximately 60% of people suffering from anorexia, which is regarded as one of the most difficult mental illnesses to cure or prevent from failing. Reduce substance abuse and addictive behaviors. CBT has been shown in studies to be effective in treating cannabis and other drug addictions, such as alcohol and opioid addiction. It also aids in the cessation of smoking, tobacco use, and gambling. Studies published in the Oxford Journal of Medicine and Public Health on smoking cessation solutions discovered that working skills acquired during CBT periods were extremely beneficial in reducing relapses in cigarette quitters, and it appears to be superior to other curative approaches. In comparison to control treatments, there is also more support for CBT's behavioral procedures, helping to stop impulses. In the treatment of problematic gaming addictions, promotes self-esteem and confidence. Even if you have no significant mental health issues, CBT can help you replace harmful, negative thoughts that cause low self-esteem with positive affirmations and expectations. This opens up new ways to deal with stress, improve relationships, and increase motivation to try new things. Assists you in becoming more rational. The brain functions essentially as a neutral object, responding based on the information at its disposal as well as the way it was trained to respond. Cognitive therapy teaches the brain how to think rationally. CBT holds that our thoughts influence how we feel, behave, and deal with situations. The good news is that we have the ability to change how we think and act even if the situation remains unchanged. CBT assists patients in gaining control of the thinking pattern that leads to irrational behavior. CBT patients learn thought strategies to help them cope better when automatic negative thoughts, ANTs, arise. CBT aids in the development of brain control strategies. It increases your self-esteem. CBT improves your self-esteem and works on your belief system, allowing you to gain greater control over your thoughts. You will be able to face any challenge that comes your way on your path to success and achieving your goals if you have self-confidence. It assists you in remaining calm and relaxed. The first stage of learning about social anxiety therapy is to devise a new way to respond to anxiety. With CBT treatment, one will not be afraid of anxiety or anything that happens unexpectedly because we approach things with much peace and calm. It teaches the best way to deal with various situations that may arise in a more relaxed manner. As you expect better outcomes, CBT helps to raise your expectations. We often expect bad things to happen to us because of our past experiences and self-doubts. We are always expecting bad things to happen to us. CBT works on your thoughts and belief system to help you act more rationally. As our thoughts and actions become more rational, our expectations become more logical as we expect good things to happen. CBT forces us to repeatedly question ourselves in order to determine whether our old beliefs are rational or not. Are they based on facts? Alternatively, have they been our norm for years and we have never questioned it? What exactly is the truth? Do we pay attention to feedback from others or only to our own internal negative conclusions? Is it possible that we've fallen victim to self, brainwashing over the years. Our own negative automatic thoughts can reprocess throughout the brain. Have you figured out how to stop them? Have you investigated the possible explanations for your actions? And have you considered that there may be no justifiable reason to be fearful and anxious? Our thoughts and beliefs transform our belief systems, causing physical changes in the brain. A better way of thinking leads us to expect a different, positive outcome. Your outcome is determined by how you perceive the outcome. Additional advantages of cognitive behavioral therapy include keeping an addiction from relapsing, resolving relationship problems, recognizing negative emotions and thoughts, management of chronic pain, anger control, capacity to deal with grief and loss, managing sleep disorders. What is cognitive behavior therapy? CBT works by identifying thoughts that arise on a regular basis, using them as indicators of positive activity and replacing them with healthier, more empowering alternatives. The heart of CBT is mastering self-coping techniques, which allow individuals to handle their responses to situations logically, change the thoughts they tell themselves, and practice logical self-counseling. While this helps the CBT therapist, counselor, and the affected person gain confidence and have a great romantic relationship, the power is in the hands of the individual. How eager a patient is to explore his or her thoughts, be open-minded, complete research assignments, and maintain clinical patience throughout the CBT course of action can all influence how beneficial CBT will be for these. Characteristics that make CBT an effective tool. Pragmatic approach. CBT techniques in theory are based on rational thinking, which means they seek out and apply details. Even the inductive method of CBT encourages people to question their own beliefs and perceptions to see if they are realistic. There is an implicit premise in CBT that many behavioral and psychological responses are all learned. With the assistance of CBT therapists, patients realize that their long-held premises and hypotheses are partially incorrect, reducing unnecessary anxiety and suffering. Emotions that are difficult or debilitating. Most CBT therapists can teach people how to stay calm and clear, headed even when confronted with unpleasant situations. Accepting difficult emotions as part of life is critical, and it can help one avoid developing a bad habit. We usually become upset and distressed as a result of our strong feelings, instead of adding self, blame, rage, despair, or disappointment to already difficult feelings. CB teaches patients to accept a problem calmly without exacerbating it, inquiring and expressing. Cognitive behavioral therapists typically ask a lot of questions to their patients in order to help them gain a new and realistic perspective on the problem and also to help them control how they feel. Clearly defined agendas and techniques. CBT is typically delivered in a series of sessions, each with a specific goal, concept, or technique that works in tandem. Sessions, unlike some other types of therapy, are not solely for the therapist and individual to speak openly without an agenda in mind. CBT therapists teach their clients how to deal with difficult thoughts and feelings by practicing specific techniques during sessions that can later be implemented in life when they are most needed. Other types of psychotherapy Vs. Cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT is a type of psychotherapy that requires open communication between the patient and the therapist. You may be familiar with other types of psychotherapy and wonder what makes CBT unique. When there is an overlap between different types of psychotherapy, a therapist may use techniques from different psychotherapy approaches to help patients achieve their goals. CBT, for example, can be combined with exposure therapy to help anyone suffering from a phobia. What distinguishes CBT from other popular forms of therapy? According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, CBT differs from other popular forms of Dialectical Behavior Therapy Vs, CBT, DDT. Although CBT and DAT are most likely the most comparable curative approaches, DAT is heavily reliant on validation or accepting uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. DAT therapists use applications such as mindfulness, guided meditation to assist individuals in detecting a balance between acceptance and change. Exposure therapy is a type of cognitive behavioral therapy used to treat eating disorders, phobias, and anti-inflammatory diseases. It teaches individuals to use calming strategies and a series of exposures to triggers, the most feared issues, in order to become less concerned with the outcome. Interpersonal Therapy Vs, CBT. Social therapy focuses on a patient's relationships with his or her family, friends, and coworkers. Therapy includes focusing on societal interactions and recognizing negative patterns such as isolation, jealousy, blame, or aggression. CBT can be used in conjunction with social therapy to help reveal subjective beliefs and notions that are driving negative behavior and support others. Journal work in CBT. The most important aspect of CBT is journaling. This may be beneficial to you. Practice balanced and accurate self-talk. Learn how to change and control your thoughts and behaviors. Use self-evaluations to help you reflect and respond in healthier and more effective ways. Learn how to accurately understand and assess emotional behaviors such as external situations and reactions. It is possible to learn how to live well and balance your mind and body by utilizing various methods. Again, when compared to other therapies, the time spent in treatment is usually shorter. Also, keep in mind that CBT will not cure depression or other problems. Rather, it will provide measurable relief while improving your daily life. CBT for addiction treatment. Dave had been watching his son Noel struggle with methamphetamine addiction for over 5 years. By the age of 27, Noel had been to several different rehab and treatment programs, some of which helped him in the short term, but he would always relapse and end up back on the streets, leaving his parents terrified and with nowhere to turn. Dave had given up on the healthcare system helping his son at this point. He began writing a book about addiction as a journalist and began interviewing some of the world's leading experts on the nature of addiction and treatment. Dave says he was at a loss for words because he was interviewing someone who knew more about methamphetamine addiction than anyone else on the planet, but even he couldn't tell him where he could get the help he needed. He inquired with other researchers and work colleagues, but received no response. Because the experts didn't know, he changed his strategy and began interviewing people who had overcome addiction to learn how they did it. That's when he met Holly, who had been addicted to methamphetamine for 15 years and described herself as being plagued by demons she couldn't control. Holly went through the same ordeal, going to a treatment center after treatment center, but nothing worked. She was at the end of the line and thought she would die if she didn't quit until she was introduced to cognitive behavioral therapy one day. She has been sober for 12 years. Dave was inspired by Holly's success story to refer Noel to one of the best cognitive behavioral therapists in the United States. Noel is now 32 years old, 5 years clean, happily married, and the author of 2 books on addiction recovery. According to Dave, his experience reflects the medical field's lack of understanding of the addiction problem and its ability to effectively treat it. Today, over 40 million Americans are addicted to something, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or nicotine. According to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse, less than 10 of people get treatment and even fewer get effective treatment. Researchers have developed effective behavioral and pharmaceutical treatments for addiction over the last few decades. However, such treatments are scarce in community and residential treatment programs, and programs typically employ strategies such as tough love tactics, which are rarely effective. There are also the most well-known treatment programs that most people have heard of, such as Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, which have helped many addicts while failing many others. There are numerous reasons for treatment failures in America. These include a long tradition of viewing drug addiction as a moral failing rather than a disease. The health insurance industry has no interest in covering addiction, and there is a statewide issue with licensing standards that frequently do not require addiction counselors to have extensive training to effectively deal with the problems that addicts face. What works? There are numerous evidence-based behavioral treatments for substance abuse, with cognitive behavioral therapy being one of the most widely used. Before you begin working on the techniques listed below, you must first prepare yourself for change. Here are the 5 essential steps you must take. Make a list of the reasons why you want to change. Why didn't your previous attempts at recovery work? Set measurable goals for yourself, such as a start date. Remove all traces of your addiction from your workplace, home, and any other places you frequent. Inform your friends and family that you are committed to recovery and ask for their help. Create a support network. Don't try to fight your addiction on your own. You need a strong support system and positive influences. The more people you have to lean on for advice, a sympathetic ear, and encouragement, the better. Friends and family. When it comes to recovery, the help of family and friends is invaluable. If you are hesitant to turn to the family because you have disappointed them in the past, you may want to consider family therapy or relationship counseling to mend things. Create a sober friendship network. Because like attracts like, there's a good chance you have a lot of friends who aren't sober. You must break free from this group of people because they will set you up for failure. It is critical that you have sober friends who will guide you through your recovery. You might want to join a church, take a class, volunteer, or attend community events to expand your network. If you don't have a drug-free living environment or a stable home, you might want to consider moving into a sober living home. Attend meetings. A recovery support group will give you the encouragement you need to keep going with your recovery. Spending time with people who understand what you're going through can be extremely therapeutic. What caused your addiction? Addiction does not happen by itself. There is always an underlying cause, and it is critical that you discover what it is to ensure that it does not resurface. Did you begin using it to erase memories of a traumatic event? A relationship breakdown? If you do not address the source of the problem, it will resurface once you are sober. To be successful with the treatment, you must first address the underlying causes. Stress relief. Many people use drugs or alcohol to relieve stress or to forget about painful events in their lives. There are far better ways to deal with stress. You can learn to manage your problems effectively without relapsing into your addiction. Because everyone is unique, you must find the techniques that work best for you. When you are confident in your ability to deal with stress, you will find that it is less overwhelming and intimidating. Exercise. Meditation and yoga are excellent stress relievers. You can also go for a quick walk around the block. Get some sun. Being outside in nature will quickly relax you. Playing with an animal can help you to relax and soothe yourself. Smell. Inhale the aroma of a flower, your favorite perfume, or some freshly ground coffee beans. Take yourself out of the present moment and imagine yourself in a beautiful setting. Pamper yourself by soaking in a hot bath or taking a long shower. You can also massage your shoulders or neck. Triggers and cravings. Sobriety is not the end of your recovery. Your brain still requires time to rebuild the connections that were distorted while you were an addict. You will experience intense drug cravings while rebuilding your life. You'll have to make an effort to avoid situations, people, and places that trigger the desire to use. Coping techniques. Cravings will occur and cannot be avoided. Therefore, it is critical that you have prepared coping strategies. Distracting activities. There are many things you can do to distract yourself, such as exercise, hiking, a hobby, reading, watching a movie, or visiting a friend. When you focus your attention on something else, the urges will fade. Discuss it. When cravings strike, reach out to sober friends or family members. Talking can help you pinpoint the source of the craving as well as relieve the sensation. Urge surf. Many addicts attempt to cope with their cravings by simply experiencing them. Some cravings are so strong that they can't be ignored. When this happens, it can be beneficial to resist the urge until it passes. This technique is known as urge surfing. Imagine yourself as a surfer riding the wave of your craving, staying on top of it until it breaks, crests, and loses power. Change and challenge your thoughts. When addicts have a craving, they tend to focus on how good the drug made them feel and ignore the negative consequences. You might find it useful to remind yourself of how bad the drug made you feel after you got off the high. Change your life for the better with CBT. To live a happy and fulfilling life, you must transform your negative, unrealistic, and irrational thoughts into a positive, more realistic, and rational thought pattern. To begin, you must admit and recognize that you have both irrational, negative, and rational, positive thoughts. Each one is formed slightly differently, and some examples are negative. Irrational thoughts: I'm going to have a bad day because it's raining outside. If I had never been born, my parents would not be arguing and on the verge of divorce. Because this guy just hit my bumper, I'm going to be late for work and get fired. I won't be able to afford a replacement. Nothing ever goes right for me because I'm such a jerk. Positive, rational thoughts: the flowers will bloom now that it has begun to rain. They were in desperate need of water. Although my parents argue frequently, it is not because of me. I will show them love and support while also assisting them in resolving their differences without guilt. I'm thankful that no one was hurt in this accident. My bumper is damaged, but it could have been worse. Although therapy is a component of the cognitive behavioral therapy process, it is important to remember that therapy does not refer to the therapist doing the work for you. It entails asking numerous questions. You must become comfortable asking questions and then seeking answers from within. Some of these questions might be: what are the reasons you believe you will never be happy? What evidence do you have to back up this claim? Have you ever asked someone you like out on a date? When you put yourself out there, how often do you get rejected? How often do you not get rejected? Every day we encounter 3 types of problems. Then there's the practical. This is the situation that arises when you are attempting to achieve a goal but encounter an impediment. Then there's the emotional. This is how I reacted to the situation. Then there's the imagined. This is the scenario you made up in your head. As an example, the practical issue would be if your car broke down. You would be upset as an emotional reaction. Although most people would be upset if their car broke down, the actual car breaking down is not the cause of your upset. Instead, you're upset because of how you handled the situation. In situations where you are experiencing emotional upheaval, ask yourself whether the issue is one of want or need. Want is something you want. Need is something related to basic survival. This includes things like air, food, water, and medication. Do you require that the car not break down? Is it a threat to your basic survival? No. Most likely not. However, you want it to not break down because it makes your life easier and saves you money. Reacting with a gut reaction will not help the situation and will not solve the problem. It simply reinforces the negative thoughts that arise. It's an irrational reaction to an otherwise rational situation. So, by altering your thought processes, you can live a happier life. People who suffer from irrational, negative thoughts spend the majority of their lives in a state of unconsciousness. They are unaware that these beliefs are irrational and negative because they are unaware of anything else. They believe that what they are feeling and thinking are normal processes that everyone else goes through. Their thoughts and minds, on the other hand, are slowly killing them. After recognizing that they are experiencing these irrational negative thoughts, They must admit to themselves to what extent they are experiencing them. They must also admit to themselves that their thoughts are irrational and negative and consider how frequently they occur. Is this happening once or twice a day? Or more frequently? The most important step toward changing them and dealing with the thoughts is admitting the truth to yourself. You can change your thoughts with the help of your therapist and by doing homework like the ones listed below. Following these actions will change your life for the better, so doing so is essential. First, whenever you feel depressed or anxious, take out your journal and write down the thoughts that come to mind. You will need to analyze all of these ideas later, which are irrational and negative thoughts. How many are irrational, negative thoughts? Convert these negative thoughts into rational, positive ones. Make a list of your rational, positive thoughts. To implement these changes, you must write them down every day. This will assist you in eliminating those debilitating thoughts and automatically changing your irrational, negative thoughts to rational, positive thoughts. For a while, you'll simply write those thoughts down and transform them into rational, positive thoughts. Over time, your ability to change them will become automatic, which will come as a surprise the first time you do it. The day you stop yourself and automatically change your thought pattern is the day you begin to change your life. Every time you do it, it will become easier and easier. It will become second nature to you over time. You will have regained control of your life and mind at this point. This will be a watershed moment in your life. A few more benefits of using increased visibility. Mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy can help you be more present for your friends and family. Mindfulness training has been shown to improve practitioners' ability to pay attention to those they care about. The patient is able to translate the need to be present into an action plan that will make it happen by using cognitive behavioral therapy. For example, the next time you're talking with your partner, consider giving the conversation your undivided attention. Pay close attention to everything they say. Listen as if this is the first time you've ever seen this person. Pay close attention to what they are saying. Less anxiety. Living with anxiety can take a toll on your partner because they are constantly in need of a support system. Anxious people frequently require a safety companion, or someone who can assist them during panic attacks or agoraphobic episodes. For example, if you have panic attacks, the other person's schedule must be adjusted to accommodate your needs. This can put too much strain on the relationship. It can cause resentment and irritation. The relief of anxiety from cognitive behavioral therapy will help the relationship improve because the anxiety will no longer control the schedule and harm the relationship. When you have uncontrollable anxiety, consider seeing a therapist who is trained in cognitive behavioral therapy. Improved mood. Depression can have a negative impact on the person's family. It is difficult for the person suffering to be enthusiastic about life or activities. They have little or no energy, and their sex drive, among other things, suffers greatly. Patients can begin to feel better after 12 to 16 weeks of cognitive behavioral therapy. They will regain their ability to function without the loss of energy, their sex drive will improve, their zest for life will grow, and they will find more excitement in their activities. When one person suffers, the entire family suffers. When one person is happy, the entire family is happy. Consider using cognitive behavioral therapy on your own, or with the assistance of a trained therapist to see how well it can improve your life. Improved sleep. 23% of adults in the United States have poor sleeping habits. When you don't get enough sleep, you'll become irritable, impatient, and cranky, and your personal interactions with family and friends will suffer. Insomnia has been known to make bedtime stressful. This interferes with the coziness of your bed and puts you in an uncomfortable position for the duration of the night. It can even disrupt your partner's sleep patterns. In 4 to 6 sessions, cognitive behavioral therapy can help with insomnia. It can assist a person in regaining the ability to fall asleep and sleep more soundly. It also helps to restore the link between their bed and rest and relaxation rather than stress. Consider cognitive behavioral therapy if you want to improve your sleep. Improved alcohol relationship. Too much drinking can be harmful to your health and your relationships. Overuse of alcohol leads to a higher divorce rate than any other factor. It is also linked to partner violence and dissatisfaction among those in a relationship with an alcoholic. Cognitive behavioral therapy is an excellent method for addressing the thoughts and behaviors that fuel the alcohol problem and assisting the sufferer in finding a better way to cope with their alcohol use. Couples behavioral therapy is frequently the most effective treatment. This is the stage at which both partners contribute to the treatment plan. Because alcoholism is so severe, lifelong abstinence is required for long-term success. There are treatment programs that encourage moderate alcohol consumption, but abstinence is generally preferred. Happier children. When children suffer from phobias or anxiety, it can affect the entire family. Parents will suffer alongside their children as a result of the child's refusal to participate in the activity they fear. In this case, an old adage holds true. You are only as happy as your least happy child. There is a significant difference in parenting styles between each set of parents. One can be both lenient and strict. The symptoms can amplify the parenting styles because the child is causing undue stress. This causes conflict within the home as parents argue about the best way to care for their child, resulting in resentment and anger between the two parents. Cognitive behavioral therapy, in conjunction with behavioral treatments, has been found to be extremely beneficial in the treatment of these childhood disorders. They are capable of assisting all parties involved, not just the child. Try cognitive behavioral therapy with your child, both at home and in a therapist's office. Thought patterns that are more beneficial. Cognitive behavioral therapy is used not only for mental health, but also for relationships and communication, because it is based on the relationship between behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. Having reality, aligned thoughts implies having more positive behaviors and feelings. Our relationships can suffer as a result of the negative, irrational thoughts that enter our minds. As an example, your spouse may continue to leave their clothes in the middle of the floor when they remove them. You think to yourself, "He must think I'm his maid because he just throws his clothes on the floor. He doesn't care about me or the tasks I have to complete throughout the day. He must believe he works harder because he does not have to clean up after himself. He doesn't value my work or my assistance at home." These are all irrational negative thoughts. There is no evidence that they are correct. These kinds of thoughts disrupt the relationship and can cause a schism between the two partners. The patient is supposed to notice the thoughts that we are constantly telling ourselves in cognitive behavioral therapy. They frequently occur so quickly and automatically that we do not have time to connect the story in our heads to a real-life situation. Once you've identified those thoughts, you can work on changing them to rational, positive ones. Perhaps your partner's throwing his clothes to the floor has nothing to do with how he perceives your services. Perhaps he is simply too tired and complacent to pick them up. His preoccupation may have nothing to do with your marital status. Perhaps your concerns are more specific to a concern you have from another situation, in which case they are justified. Cognitive behavioral therapy is not a treatment plan that promotes psychological deception. However, a treatment plan can assist us in editing those negative thoughts into more accurate positive thoughts. When you are upset with your spouse, friends, or family, ask yourself the following questions. What is the evidence for the thought I had? Is the evidence contradictory to my beliefs? How accurate are my assumptions based on this evidence? How will I change this thought to reflect a more realistic perspective on the situation? More intentions are carried out we'd all like to pay attention to our partners. We wish to be helpful, patient, and generous. We started this relationship with the best of intentions, as with any other. However, if we are not deliberate with our values, we risk leaving our intentions as vague and meaningless platitudes. For example, telling ourselves that family is the most important thing, then do the exact opposite in putting them last. Even if you do not have a disorder to address, cognitive behavioral therapy can be used. It is an excellent tool for sustaining action that is consistent with our values. You can begin to repair your relationships by taking inventory of them and setting clear goals for them. For example, plan to turn off your phone during mealtime and instead communicate with your family. Working with your family to make this change is an excellent way to get everyone on board. A cognitive behavioral therapy program would include activities such as putting action steps on a calendar to help you stay on track. For example, you could schedule spend time with the kids doing something they enjoy. The next step would be to keep any other distractions out of that time slot. Consider talking with your partner about who they need you to be for the relationship to work. Then make a plan to achieve your objectives. Keep track of any effects that occur within the relationship. The good news about cognitive behavioral therapy. The most important message you can take away from this book is that, contrary to popular belief, you have complete control over your thoughts and actions. You are completely in charge of your thoughts and actions. Because you created the thoughts, you have the ability to change them. The fundamental concept of cognitive behavioral therapy is that you have complete control over how you think and behave. When confronted with situations that elicit negative thoughts, remember that you are the source of those thoughts. Simply say to yourself, "Stop," and rewrite your thoughts to be more positive rather than negative. It can be difficult to change your thought patterns. This is due to your conditioning to believe these thoughts. So, by being patient and doing the homework assigned to you by your therapist, you can start to see real changes in your life and thought processes. It may be difficult at first, but it will gradually become easier. All that is required is practice. Consider writing a letter with your non-writing hand or painting your nails with your non-dominant hand. These things are difficult to do at first, but with time and practice, you will be able to do them with less discomfort. It will become natural and automatic for you one day. Another example of how this would work in practice is the application of the law of attraction, which states that what you send out will come back to you. As a result, if you send out negative energy, you will receive negative energy in return. Consider a stressful situation in which you use positive rational thoughts instead of negative. Irrational thoughts. Observe how the energy in the environment changes. You will begin to attract more positive thoughts and energy over time. And with this positive energy shift in your life, you will be able to begin living a much happier, healthier life. CBT strategies to overcome fear, panic, anxiety, depression, anger, and worry. Implementing cognitive behavioral strategies today. Cognitive behavior adheres to a specific system, allowing you to effectively implement this practice and achieve complete relief through your efforts. It begins with identifying the original thought processes that are causing your unwanted emotional response and then moves on to find a way to interrupt those thoughts so that you can eliminate unwanted behaviors. When you identify the root cause of your emotional responses to your environment, you can easily begin to change it and allow yourself to grow beyond your anxiety and depression. As you work through the following 5 steps, keep in mind that you will need to apply them to every single trigger that you encounter in order to completely eliminate all of your emotional triggers. This may take some time, especially if you have been struggling for a long time, because there may be many triggers to work through. Furthermore, it will take several repetitions of each trigger to retrain your brain to respond differently than it has been responding all along. However, if you want to experience complete relief from your anxiety and depression, you must maintain your faith and continue the process even when it appears to be ineffective. as it can take some time for your brain to adjust. However, the more you practice your new reaction to your triggers, the more you will feel relief from your anxiety and depression. As a result, it is critical that you go through the new motions even if it does not feel like they are working, because they are, even if you do not see immediate results. Furthermore, in order to achieve complete relief, you should prioritize working on your biggest triggers first, then moving on to smaller triggers later. Trying to override every trigger right away can be overwhelming, and you may struggle to keep your changes. By focusing on the most important things first, you can quickly eliminate your overwhelming triggers and experience significant relief. Because you are no longer in such a state of overwhelm and stress, you may notice that some of your smaller triggers naturally dissolve as a result of this. Once these major stresses have been addressed, if you encounter any residual triggers, you can approach them in the same manner to eliminate them as well. This will provide you with more complete relief from your anxiety or depression. Step 1. Identifying the root cause. The first step in using CBT to cope with anxiety or depression is to identify the underlying issue that is causing your anxious or depressive episodes. This root problem, according to CBT, refers to the environmental condition that is causing you to have a specific thought about that condition, which then leads to your emotional experiences. The best way to start identifying your root problem or problems is to write down everything that makes you feel anxious or depressed in a journal. Be very specific about these experiences so that you know exactly what is triggering your unwanted emotional response. For example, if your family causes you anxiety, be very clear about which family members are causing your anxiety and what they are doing that causes you to experience anxious responses. This clarity will allow you to pinpoint the precise point at which anxiety begins in your daily interactions with these people. That ability to pinpoint the exact moment will provide you with the awareness required to identify the moment in action so that you can apply your other CBT practices to help you overcome your responses. Even if you do not intend to address every single circumstance right away, make sure your list is exhaustive. Developing an awareness of what is causing you to feel these emotions is critical to effectively mitigating your response to the environmental experience itself. Make a list of each of these emotional responses if you experience both anxiety and depression so that you can begin working on healing both. After you've made a list of the things that make you anxious, you'll need to go over it to see what makes you the most anxious. This way, you can set some goals for yourself based on what you want to work on right away and trust that the rest will be addressed later when you have more energy. Make your CBT goals specific and descriptive so that you know exactly what you're working toward. For example, if you experience depression whenever your spouse does not pay you enough attention, your goal may be to communicate with your spouse and work toward a resolution together, rather than experiencing depression during these moments. Defining specific goals will ensure that you know exactly what behavior you want to avoid repeating and what new behaviors you want to replace your old ones with. This will allow you to see how far you are progressing and make adjustments along the way if you find that you are not progressing as quickly as you would like. Following the development of your goals, the next step is to identify exactly what is going on in your mind when the root cause of your emotions occurs. Ask yourself what thoughts you are having during those experiences and how those thoughts are contributing to the development of your anxiety. For example, if you are anxious because your boss wants to speak with you, your first thoughts may be, "What have I done wrong? Why can't I do anything right? I'm going to be fired. I won't be able to pay my rent or eat, and I'll be homeless and hungry. How come I can't do anything right?" These thoughts will undoubtedly elicit an anxious response because your immediate fear is that you will lose your livelihood and the lifestyle that you have built for yourself. If you are unsure of the exact thoughts you are having, you may want to consider using a thought record, which is a tool commonly used in CBT. The thought record allows you to record your thoughts during anxious experiences, allowing you to begin to identify exactly what you are experiencing in your anxious moments. Include the time, the external trigger, the thought, the intensity of the thought, and the intensity of your emotional response on your thought record. Keeping track of these can assist you in determining the source of your troubling experiences and what you need to change in your mind through the CBT process to eliminate your anxious responses. If you are having difficulty seeing your own growth within yourself, you might consider keeping a thought record throughout the process to help you track your progress. Step 2. Create self-statements. Self-statements are the thoughts that run through your mind about yourself and how you see yourself in various situations in your life. Our self-statements are generally classified as positive or negative. Positive self-statements are how we reinforce ourselves from within, essentially praising ourselves for positive behavior or something we believe we did well. For example, if your boss complimented you on a recent project, yourself statements might be, "Wow, I really am good at what I do. I'm a wonderful person." Negative self-statements, on the other hand, are how we chastise ourselves for doing something we believe was poorly or incorrectly done. For example, if your boss tells you that you need to improve because she was unimpressed with your recent performance, you might instead think, "Wow, I really stink. Take a look at how poorly I performed. I'm a terrible person." People who are experiencing anxiety or depression are almost certainly also experiencing negative self-statements. When you are experiencing anxiety or depression, your self-statements are frequently extremely negative, and you may even repeat them in your mind over and over as you essentially punish yourself for being bad. According to studies, we use negative self-statements to try to persuade ourselves to behave better by believing that by putting high pressure against doing something wrong, we can encourage ourselves to change. Unfortunately, this is not the case, as negative self-statements will not encourage you to change your behavior, but may instead increase your negative behaviors or emotional responses by raising your internal stress levels. Instead, use positive self-statements to encourage you to look beyond your failures and start seeing the areas in your life where you are doing good. In some ways, you want to use these statements to help you see the silver lining in your actions. You can probably identify areas where you may be experiencing negative self-statements now that you have a sense of what your biggest problem areas are and what your thoughts are around those problem areas. With clarity around what those statements are, you can begin to consciously and intentionally rewrite those statements so as to eliminate the stress that you are experiencing in relation to your environmental conditions. You will need to do two things when rewriting these statements. First, deliberately rewrite the statement so that you have something positive to say to yourself when your trigger is triggered. Second, you must ensure that you are using those statements when your triggers are activated so that you can begin to reap their benefits of them. Some people call this using affirmations because your goal is to affirm your positive self-statements to yourself often enough that your negative self-statements begin to dissolve and you start genuinely believing the positive self-statements. You may find it difficult to believe these self-statements at first because you have become accustomed to believing and attaching yourself to the negative self-statements that you have been feeding yourself. However, as you continue to affirm these new positive self-statements to yourself, you will begin to believe them and feel better about yourself. The best way to begin writing positive self-statements is to sit with your thought log and figure out how you can completely flip the script on the negative self-statements you seem to cling to. For example, suppose you are disabled and you find yourself frequently repeating negative self-statements about your disability because you believe it has reduced your quality of life. Perhaps your negative self-statements that arise whenever you face a challenge are something like, "I am incapable. I will never be able to do anything good again. Why can't I be normal like everyone else if I'm a loser?" These negative self-statements will obviously not improve your sense of well-being, but when you are in an emotional state, you may feel as if you have no other choice in how you feel or what you think. The reality is that this is not true and that you always have control over how you choose to think and feel. So you can choose to change the script on your negative self-statements to something more positive and affirming of yourself and your abilities. For example, you could say instead, "I am capable of doing so many other things, but I accept that I cannot do this one. I am a wonderful person who chooses to be grateful for the life that has been given to me." By making the conscious decision to be grateful for what you have and what you can do rather than feeling defeated and depressed about what you don't have or what you can't do, you change your experience. Instead of feeling so much self-defeat and self-pity, you allow yourself to choose to see and live within the positive aspects of your life, which you can then use to keep yourself feeling positive and hopeful. You must do this for every negative thought you have when confronted with the triggers that usually set off your anxiety or depression. Ideally, you should rewrite these new, positive self-statements and keep them nearby so that you can repeat them to yourself whenever you start experiencing negative self-statements. If you find yourself in a situation where your trigger has been activated and you are experiencing a new negative self-statement in response to that trigger, simply make the decision to change it by completely reversing it. Then, in your mind, repeat your new positive statement until you begin to feel better around the trigger that has been activated. The repetition will retrain your brain over time, allowing you to begin experiencing a complete change in your reality. Step 3. Discovering new possibilities for positive thinking. Along with rewriting your self-statements, you should seek out new opportunities for positive thinking, even if your trigger has not been pulled. Finding new ways to think positively in situations that previously caused you to feel extremely negative can retrain your brain to see things in a more positive light, including situations that previously caused you anxiety. These new opportunities should be pursued when you are in a calm or neutral state of mind so that you can begin to adjust your overall feelings toward your trigger in general. This way, you won't be living in a constant state of discomfort, worry, or alertness as you try to stay prepared to respond to the things in your life that cause you anxiety or depression. Assume you have anxiety because a coworker is a bully and has repeatedly treated you poorly over the years, despite your best efforts to improve the situation and make work conditions better for yourself. Perhaps you only have a panic attack after the bullying has started, but as a result, you find yourself on edge every time that coworker is scheduled to work the same shift as you. Because you are so concerned about the negative experiences you have had with this coworker in the past, you may find yourself on edge every time someone else mentions his or her name. As a result, your constant state of mind will be negative and anxious around this person, which will only exacerbate your anxious responses whenever this person bullies you. This will not only increase your unwanted emotional responses, but it will also reduce your ability to stand up for yourself and assert your boundaries around this person. As a result, no matter what you do, the unpleasant experience will continue. You empower your mind to move into a state of rest, rather than existing in a chronic state of worry by finding a new way to think positively about your anxious experiences and in general. This way, you're far more likely to manage your emotions in a more meaningful and effective way, allowing you to achieve the outcomes you want or need from the unpleasant experience. You can do this by making time to monitor and adjust your thoughts around the trigger even when you are not actively triggered. Consider how your thoughts sound while you are thinking about the upsetting experience and begin rewriting them. Find a way to empower yourself by flipping the script and rewriting your thoughts in a new and more positive way, just as you did with your self-statements. For example, instead of thinking, "I really hope I don't have to work with so-and-so today. I can't stand it when they're around because they treat me so badly." Instead, say to yourself, "I'm so thankful that I have a great job that allows me to pay my bills. If so-and-so is present today, I will assert myself, and if that does not work, I will seek her assistance. You literally empower yourself to change your experience around your triggers by having a clear action plan in place and thinking empowering thoughts. Step 4. Incorporate daily visualization practices. Another effective tool used in CBT is visualization, which allows you to see yourself acting differently than you normally do in everyday life. You can visualize your triggering experiences and then intentionally visualize yourself responding to those triggering experiences in a more positive and intentional manner using visualization. Visualizing yourself acting differently has been shown to teach your brain how to respond differently in situations that previously caused you to feel anxious or depressed. Dr. Biasiato discovered at the University of Chicago that encouraging basketball players to visualize themselves practicing basketball could result in significant improvement in their skills. Dr. Biasiato discovered in his research that players who actually practiced playing and those who only visualized their practice and never physically practiced were nearly equal in their performance improvements. Imagine what it can do for you when it comes to enduring your own triggers, visualizing yourself practicing basketball without ever actively practicing your skills can help basketball players improve their abilities. Visualization is clearly a powerful aid, which is why it is such an important component of CBT. Through visualization, you can begin training your brain to improve how it responds to negative triggers, which can eventually lead to you eliminating those triggers entirely. To begin using visualization in your own CBT practice, think about your biggest triggers and spend some time visualizing how you would respond differently if you felt more in control in those situations. For example, perhaps you experience depression whenever you realize that you are attempting to build a business but are unable to generate any income from it. Perhaps you feel like a failure, and that being an entrepreneur isn't for you because you can't seem to create any success in your venture, so you're feeling down on yourself. Then, in your visualization, you would see yourself dealing with setbacks with greater intention and success so that you can start earning money from your business. You can begin changing the way you approach your business and your confidence in yourself as a business owner by visualizing yourself closing sales and easily attracting customers. As a result, rather than feelings of defeat and depression, you will likely see greater improvements in your company and greater motivation within yourself to create those improvements. You should do your visualization practice for at least 10 minutes every day, as research has shown that this is the amount of time required to change your entire experience. Simply set a reminder or an appointment in your phone to begin your visualization practice every day, and then set your timer for 10 minutes. Then, for 10 minutes, close your eyes and visualize yourself successfully navigating difficult experiences. The more you practice this, the more confident you will feel in this area of your life, and the easier it will be to navigate it successfully in real life. Step 5. Acceptance of disappointment and pain. The final aspect of CBT that you will need to learn is how to accept disappointment and pain. Although you will learn more about this in ACT, it is also an important part of CBT because it allows you to recognize that you may never be able to completely eliminate the trigger in your life. Instead, you may simply need to accept that it will always be difficult for you to navigate and that you will always need to exert a consistent amount of effort in order to succeed. When you accept that things will never be perfect, you can let go of the hope that everything will change and become easier for you. For example, if you accept that your mother will always be unkind to you because you chose to drop out of college and travel the world, her constant jabs at you for your decision will no longer hurt you as much. They may still irritate you and make you feel bad, but with acceptance and the implementation of other CBT practices, you will no longer have such strong emotional reactions to them. Acceptance of what you cannot control, as well as acceptance of feelings of disappointment and pain, can bring about a significant amount of peace within you because you stop trying to run away. Rather than attempting to escape the pain or stress, you can simply acknowledge it for what it is and appreciate that it will always exist for you. However, because you are no longer attempting to escape it, you are no longer causing unnecessary disappointment and pain in your own life by allowing the suffering to consume you. As a result, you can reduce the impact of the trigger and experience significant relief from it entirely. This may not be an opportunity to completely eliminate your emotional reactions to the events in your life, but it can certainly help you regain control of them. That way, even if you're still emotionally responding, you won't feel like you're at the mercy of your emotions. Putting CBT to work. This chapter focuses primarily on applying cognitive behavioral therapy to specific problems such as depression and anxiety. We will show you how to overcome the disorders and improve your interpersonal relationships. Learning more about a psychological problem, also known as psychoeducation, is an important first step in dealing with it. This type of learning provides you with the relief of knowing that you are not alone and that others have discovered effective methods of overcoming it. It may also be beneficial for your friends and family to learn more about your problem. Some people believe that having a clear understanding of their concerns is a huge step toward recovery. A person suffering from recurrent panic attacks, for example, should begin by understanding what they are. While having a panic attack is an unpleasant experience, it is not dangerous and does not last long. Psychoeducation is important, but it is important to note that it is only one component of a comprehensive treatment plan. 1. Attacking anxiety with an axe. Anxiety is a feeling that causes a variety of unpleasant bodily sensations. Essentially, it is how one reacts to a frightening situation. Anxiety can manifest as extreme fear in the case of phobias, devastating physical emotions in the case of a panic disorder, or a relatively constant feeling of agitation and unease in the case of a panic disorder. Anxiety can manifest itself in a variety of ways and can affect anyone in society, regardless of social status. Anxiety is unpleasant. It can be extremely unpleasant and uncomfortable. Severe anxiety can make it difficult to live a fulfilling life. To the extreme, anxiety may limit your interaction with others, prevent you from leaving the house, or prevent you from working as expected. People can become anxious as a result of distinct traumatic events. However, anxiety gradually builds up without your ability to control it. In this chapter, we will show you how to deal with and overcome anxiety. Whatever form your anxiety has taken, the methods in this chapter are likely to be beneficial to you. You may have recognized the symptoms of an anxiety disorder, or your psychiatrist or doctor may have diagnosed you with one. It can be beneficial to have a clear verdict or diagnosis of your specific type of anxiety disorder. However, using this chapter will help you deal with your anxiety whether or not you have been given a formal diagnosis. 2. Fear-resistant philosophies. Anxiety is, to put it mildly, unpleasant. We don't want to dismiss your personal experiences, physical symptoms, or troubling thoughts, but we do want to encourage you to adopt an anti-fear attitude. Consider these nervous feelings to be a bully attempting to convince you that he is tougher, bigger, and more dangerous than he is. You must put an end to this type of intimidation. Anxiety causes the following ways of thinking: exaggerating the likelihood of a negative event or threat occurring, exaggerating how bad it will be if the negative event threat occurs, underestimating your ability to overcome or cope with adversity. Overcome your anxiety and fears by employing the following strategies. Be realistic about the likelihood of the negative event threat occurring. It might happen, but it's not as likely as I think. Put the severity of the negative event threat into context. This strategy is known as anti-awfulizing. It is bad, but not awful. unfortunate but not terrible, difficult but not horrifying, and difficult but not tragic. Give yourself credit for your ability to cope thus far. Maintain a high-endurance mindset. It's not comfortable, but I can tolerate it. It's difficult to bear, but it's still bearable, or it's difficult to bear, but it's still bearable. The sections that follow will allow you to put these relieving philosophies into practice with your specific symptoms and anxiety issues. 3. Surfing physical sensations. Anxiety and depression are accompanied by a plethora of mental and physical sensations. The feelings can be terrifying and intense. If you've ever had a panic attack, you're probably familiar with the various symptoms. It is all too easy for you to misinterpret your physical sensations as serious or dangerous signs of illness. If you do not recognize your mental and physical sensations as part of anxiety, you may believe you are going insane, having a heart attack, being unable to breathe, passing out, or even dying. It is understandable that someone would want to stop their symptoms and try to control them. These attempts to combat anxiety-related bodily sensations almost always have an absurd outcome. When someone freaks out about their anxious feelings, he or she worsens and perpetuates them by attempting to control or eliminate them. Attempts to stop, avoid, or reduce physical feelings are also examples of safe behaviors. Consult your psychiatrist if you have a serious health problem that necessitates medical attention. Before beginning any exposure exercises that may help you with your annoying physical symptoms of anxiety, you should always get a clean bill of health. 4. Being realistic about the possibility of bad events. When people suffer from anxiety, they are afraid that bad things will happen and are inclined to believe that they are very likely to happen. Whether one is concerned about getting sick, causing harm to themselves or loved ones, having a panic attack, or being socially rejected, he or she overestimates the likelihood of bad things happening. Anxiety can have a significant impact on how you reason and think. 5. Putting bad behavior into perspective. Anxiety frequently causes people to exaggerate the magnitude of a dreadful event in their minds. When anxiety strikes, people tend to exaggerate negative bad events, making them seem unbearable, awful, and world-ending. Fortunately, such tragedies are uncommon. Normally, one would cope with their feared event regardless of how difficult or uncomfortable it was. Anti-anxiety thinking involves increasing our confidence in our ability to deal with unpleasant events and sensations. Always tell yourself that you can and will overcome your anxiety even if it is difficult to do so. Remember that you have previously experienced panic and fear, and that you have survived despite your discomfort. You can also try to improve your attitude toward the possibility of others negatively judging you. Don't put too much stock in what other people think of you because it will only make you feel more worried and anxious. Instead, remind yourself and maintain an attitude like, "It's unfortunate if people have negative thoughts about me, but it's not unbearable or terrible." Remember that no matter how embarrassing your anxiety symptoms are, others may be more understanding and compassionate than you would expect. 6. Putting yourself out there. At this point, exposure exercises are required. They entail identifying and planning for your worries and fears. The best way to overcome an anxiety disorder is to confront one's fears in a deliberate and planned manner. Although facing fear is unpleasant, it is necessary. Consider how unhappy you are as a result of your anxiety disorder. Have you had enough of living life through a fearful lens? Would you consider enduring temporary discomfort while performing exposure exercises if the long-term benefit of overcoming anxiety is worth it? The following items are necessary for implementing effective exposures. Make the exposures difficult enough to be uncomfortable, but not so difficult that you are unlikely to stick with the technique. Continue to expose yourself to dreaded situations events on a regular basis, making them more difficult each time. One visit is insufficient. As a general rule, continue to expose yourself to your fears until you become desensitized or habituated to them. Make sure the exposure sessions are long enough for them to be effective. Remain in the situation event until your anxious feelings have subsided by half. Keeping track of what you do can help you avoid or control aspects of your anxiety. During the exposure sessions, try to resist any safety behaviors actions as much as possible. Remember the acronym FEAR from CBT. It means to confront everything and recover. Believe in your ability to tolerate, accept, and cope with the discomfort caused by anxiety. You don't have to like it, but you can put up with it. Keep notes on how your exposure works so you can trend and track your development and progress. 7. Making your exposure plan. You must now translate your intention into action. Many people put off starting exposure until they make time for it. To be honest, exposing oneself to fears is not easy, so quitting is easier than continuing. Quitting exposure sessions now may mean having to deal with fear and anxiety in the future. Expositions are not always as bad as they appear. The more frequently exposure exercises are performed, the faster one can overcome anxiety disorder. For example, one could record her first 3 exposure activities as answering phone calls, going to the supermarket, and sitting in her garden. These are the initial objectives of specific exposure events to confront. Determine the date and time for your preliminary exposure session. Set aside a specific time to complete it. Assign times to repeat the same exposure session because repetition is essential for anxiety relief. If possible, avoid gaps of more than a day between repetitions. The more frequently the exposure sessions are held, the better. The amount of time spent on exposure work will likely vary, but the general rule is to stay in the situation until the anxiety has decreased by about 50. 8. Ways to get rid of tiresome worry. When one has an anxiety disorder, the likelihood of becoming worried is high. Most people experience anxiety from time to time. You would be unconcerned about anything to avoid worrying. However, there is a significant difference between unhealthy anxiety and health concern. The first stage involves ineffective fear and worry. Worrying consumes a lot of our time and energy, is ineffective, and causes anxiety. If you notice that your current most persistent worries reoccur repeatedly, albeit in slightly different forms and means, you have some definite worry themes. This can imply that you are overly concerned about these aspects of your life, even when nothing is wrong. Relationships, finances, health, and others' perceptions of you are the most common worry themes. If you've been anxious for a long time, you might not realize that you can train your mind to be free of worrying thoughts and feelings. Worrying is a dangerous habit that can be overcome with perseverance and tenacity. Breaking it requires a lot of sacrifices and hard work, but the end result is well worth it. When one begins to resist their worry habit, they often feel vulnerable and strange. But in time, you'll grow accustomed to the sweet relief of not being a constant worrier. Give yourself little time to worry. Engage in events and activities to divert your attention away from worrying thoughts. Choose activities that require concentration, such as accounting, listening to others, or solving puzzles. Exercise can help you in a variety of ways, including sweating out your worries. 9. Relaxation techniques. Learning to relax one's body can be an important part of therapy. Anxiety and stress are both associated with shallow breathing and muscle tension. As a result, it is critical to be aware of one's bodily sensations and to practice relaxation exercises on a regular basis. CBT typically employs 2 strategies: progressive muscle relaxation and calm breathing. Calm breathing entails deliberately slowing one's breathing. Progressive muscle involves methodically tensing and relaxing various different muscle groups. As with any other skill, the more relaxation strategies are used, the faster and more effectively they work. Meditation, massage, yoga, and soothing music are all effective relaxation techniques. It is important to note, however, that the goal of relaxation is not to eliminate or avoid anxiety, because anxiety is not completely dangerous, but to make it easier to tolerate the feelings. 10. Relapse prevention. Effectively, managing your anxiety disorder is more like a sport. You must constantly stay in shape, as well as make useful skills a daily habit. However, people occasionally revert to old habits, forget and lose the progress they've made, and relapse. A relapse is defined as reverting to your old habits, behaviors, and ways of thinking that existed before you learned new techniques for overcoming your psychological problem. While lapses, i.e., a brief return to former habits, are normal during stressful times, fatigue, or low mood, relapses are not required. 11. Suggestions for how to avoid relapses and lapses. The most effective way to avoid or stop a relapse is to continue practicing CBT skills. If you practice regularly, you will be in good shape to deal with whatever situations arise. Make your own weekly schedule of the skills you will practice. First and foremost, identify when you are vulnerable to lapses. A. G. Stressful times or change, and you will be less likely to fall into one. It also assists you in developing a list of warning signs, e.g., frequent arguments with family members, more anxious and nervous thoughts, that alert you when your anxiety levels are rising. Once you understand and recognize your warning signs, you can devise a strategy for dealing with them. This entails using CBT techniques such as challenging negative thinking and practicing calm breathing. Remember that you, like everyone else in the world, are a work in progress. A better way to stop or prevent future lapses is to keep working on new challenges. You are less likely to revert to old habits if you are constantly working on new or different methods of overcoming anxiety. Determine what circumstances led to your lapse if you have ever had one. This aids in the development of a strategy for dealing with difficult situations or events in the future. Always remember that having lapses is natural and that you can learn a lot from them. The way a person thinks about their lapse has a significant impact on their future behavior. If a person believes he or she is a failure and undoes all of their hard work, he or she is more likely to give up and relapse. Instead, keep in mind that it is difficult to unlearn all of the techniques and go back to square one, being afraid and anxious and not knowing how to deal with it. Because you have already learned how to deal with your anxiety. When you make a mistake, it is not the end of the world. You can always return to your original path. It's like learning to ride a bike. Once you've mastered it, it's nearly impossible to forget. You might get a little rusty, but it won't be long before you're back to your old self. Keep in mind that lapses are normal and can be overcome. Stressing yourself out or labeling yourself as a loser or an idiot will never help you. Be kind to yourself and understand that everyone makes mistakes from time to time. Recurrence of symptoms, setbacks, and relapses are common. Essentially, remission from an eating disorder, depression, anxiety, addiction, or virtually any other psychological disorder would be the exception. It is critical to remember that change is not linear. This means that recovering from a psychological, emotional, or behavioral problem is rarely a straight line. It would be ideal if you could improve day by day until you reach full recovery. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. And that's fine. Expect some hiccups. Forewarned is forearmed. Now that you understand that setbacks and lapses are normal events, and that change is not linear, it is a fantastic idea to accept the possibility of lapses rather than live in fear of them. The speed with which you swing into action to regain control of a setback lapse usually determines how long it takes. A positive attitude toward overcoming lapses can make a significant difference. That is why it is critical to developing a relapse prevention strategy in case you begin to revert to anxious thoughts or situations. When you are discouraged, it is easy to dismiss all of your accomplishments. As a result, make an accurate and fair assessment of your current growth and progress. Small changes have a big impact. Finally, make sure to reward yourself for all of your efforts to overcome anxiety. A reward could be treating yourself to a nice meal or a treat. Overcoming and managing anxiety isn't always fun or easy, and you deserve to be rewarded for your efforts. Self-care. One of the best ways to improve your coping patience is to ensure that you are providing yourself with the care you require. It is easy to forget to care for yourself when you are so busy or when you believe you are unworthy of basic care. However, if you do not maintain yourself, you will not have the patience or energy to deal with life's curveballs because you have invested so much of your emotional energy elsewhere. Your emotional battery is either depleted or close to being depleted, and you will need to recharge it in some way. No matter how strongly you feel otherwise, you are deserving of care. Everyone deserves to be able to rest and enjoy themselves on occasion. What does self-care entail? There are numerous ways to engage in self-care, and it will look different for each individual. The important thing to remember is that this self-care helps you become a healthier person in some way, shape, or form. Self-care should also be enjoyable for you. Just as you want to enjoy your food when you diet, you should enjoy the process of becoming a healthier person overall, and when engaging in self-care. This book will address 4 major types of self-care, all of which are important in creating a person who is overall healthy, not just physically, but also mentally. Other aspects of your life in which you wish to provide yourself with self-care, such as spiritual or workplace, may be added, but these will not be addressed in this book. Remember to stick to a routine that will make you healthier in those areas of your life, and you will be able to add those categories to your list as well. Physical self-care. Physical self-care entails actions that keep your body healthy and in a state that allows you to carry out your daily obligations. It is critical that you take care of your body because it is the only one you have. You must cherish it and recognize its worth, even if this is difficult for you. The following are some ways to care for your body. You maintain a regular schedule and get enough sleep. Eat primarily healthy foods. Use every day, go for a walk, or do some form of exercise. You rest when your body requires it. When you're hungry, eat everything. Self-care for the mind. Psychological self-care includes activities that help you stay calm and engaged in the world around you so that you can face any challenges that come your way. These are, in a sense, self-care practices that keep you sane, because you can't see when your mind needs attention like you can when your body does. That's no reason to ignore your mental health. Some ways to look after your mind are as follows. Keep a journal, seek advice or direction from someone you trust or who is more knowledgeable about the situation than you are. At least once a day, unwind. Leave your work at work and disconnect from work responsibilities when you get home. For example, turn off your work phone and turn off your work phone and turn off work email notifications. Get a hobby and engage in it on a regular basis. Self-care for emotions. Emotional self-care differs from psychological self-care. It entails creating an environment in which you feel safe to express your emotions, whether positive or negative. You deserve to feel emotionally supported, and here are some ideas to help you get it. Keep a gratitude journal. Every day, do something nice for yourself. Make friends with whom you can be open about how you are feeling. Find local groups of people who share your interests, such as a book club or a hobby sports group. Seek support groups if you are recovering from trauma or dealing with a difficult situation. Self-care in relationships. This type of self-care allows you to keep relationships with others. This is about encouraging secure friendships and maintaining positive relationships with coworkers. On the other hand, it is also about understanding that it is okay to end relationships that are toxic to you or that you do not want to be in. Prioritize the most important relationships above all others, such as those with spouses, children, or immediate family, as ways to practice relationship self-care. Make an effort to make yourself available to those you care about on a regular basis. Make time to spend with your family and friends. Always attend your loved ones' special events, such as weddings, birthdays, or other important occasions. Let go of toxic relationships and only nurture the ones that make you happy or make you feel safe. Make a self-care plan. Now that you've identified the various aspects of your life that necessitate self-care, you're ready to start planning one. Write the 4 categories on a piece of paper: physical, psychological, emotional, and relationships. You should write at least one way you will engage in self-care under each of these categories. But more is recommended. The more ways you practice self-care, the better your body will be. Make certain that every self-care act you perform is legitimately enriching to you and that you will enjoy it. Examine the list you've compiled and memorize it. You want to make sure that you are confident in your ability to complete these steps and that you are committed to doing so. Once you've memorized it, tape it somewhere you'll see it frequently. You could type it on a sticky note and stick it to your computer, or you could literally tape it to your mirror so you see it every time you wash your hands or get ready to go somewhere. You want it somewhere you will see it on a regular basis to remind you that it is there and to encourage you to continue with the activities. Then make it a point to engage in these activities on a regular basis. To see results, you must take care of your body and mind over time. While one day here and there will not derail your progress, if you spend more days not engaging in self-care than you do, you will most likely not see much of an improvement in your life. This is an important step toward restoring your mental health, and you owe it to yourself to take care of yourself, as no one has a vested interest in your well-being as you do. After a month, you should take a break and reevaluate your situation. Record your progress and recognize areas of your life that have improved. You won't lose a lot of weight in a month, and you won't see a lot of changes in a month of self-care, but the ones that are there should be noticeable, at least to you. Remember that it could take up to a month for these plans and actions to become habits. So keep your expectations in check. Check in 3 months and keep track of your progress. This is when you should notice significant improvements in your attitude, behaviors, and overall sense of wellness, especially if you combine this self-care with the other CBT methods. Remember to be patient and realistic as you see progress and to continue to build the habits. It will become easier with time and the results will be worthwhile. Exercise and nutrition can help alleviate depression. There are exercises and rituals that can be added to your daily routine to help you cope with stress or simply clear your mind so that you can think more rationally. Exercise such as running, walking, or going to the gym is beneficial, as are techniques such as yoga and meditation for clearing the mind and making room for positive thoughts. Physical activity works so well to relieve stress and depression because it activates the fight or flight response. Remember that the body's natural response to stress or negativity is to increase stress hormones and provide immediate energy. If the energy generated is not used, it condenses, causing anxiety and negative thoughts. That energy would have been used in physical combat or running away from danger thousands of years ago. Work and family life are the most common sources of stress these days, and there is little physical output in these situations. Regular exercise, on the other hand, keeps stress hormones like adrenaline at bay while also releasing pent-up stress. Choose an exercise that will raise your heart rate based on your current physical ability. This could be a quick walk around the block for some or a mile run for others. Whatever your pace, getting out and moving your muscles is beneficial to both your body and mind. Exercise has been shown to cause the release of happy hormones such as endorphins, which instantly improve your mood. If you're feeling particularly stressed, exercises like boxing or martial arts may provide you with the extra release of aggression you need to clear your mind. Exercise is best done on a regular basis, which means on most days of the week. For the best health outcomes, most health professionals recommend getting at least a half hour of physical activity 5 times per week, which includes lowering the risk of chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes. However, we make the same suggestions to supplement a solid behavioral therapy plan. Furthermore, it may reduce your stress because better health will likely keep you from having stressful medical episodes and the associated medical bills. It's a win-win situation. If your doctor hasn't cleared you for aerobic exercise, try yoga or Tai Chi. These exercises emphasize slow, fluid movements that are gentler on joints and keep the heart rate low. They focus on balance and flexibility, rather than cardio, and may be a better fit for your fitness level. Don't worry, the effects of these exercises are similar. Indeed, these practices have been promoted as aiding in process of relaxation and mental clarity by improving mind-body connections. Yoga can be practiced almost anywhere. If you are unfamiliar, consider taking a class at your local gym or yoga studio, or look for online video tutorials to try at home. Begin with a beginner's class. As you practice, the poses become more difficult. You've probably seen well-rounded yogis perform gravity, defying back bends that would almost certainly land you in the hospital as a beginner. As with any exercise, pushing yourself and making progress with fitness is important, but know and practice within your limits. Proper nutrition also plays an important role in keeping you healthy, both mentally and physically, in a variety of ways. The primary function of good nutrition is to provide a well-balanced, nutrient-dense diet that supports your daily activities. This means getting protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats from a variety of sources, while also getting a variety of essential vitamins and minerals. While vitamins and minerals are required in small amounts, they play important roles in the body. Each performs a specific function within each cell of the body. They are involved in chemical reactions that keep things running smoothly, including vital work in the brain. When one of those vitamins or minerals is deficient, the chemical reactions that power the cells slow down, impairing overall function in vital organs such as the brain. Many vitamin and mineral deficiencies, or toxicities, have a direct impact on the brain. So it is critical that we consume a diverse range of them in our diet. If you are unsure whether you are getting enough nutrients, consider taking a simple multivitamin to supplement your diet, as well as consulting a nutritionist or registered dietitian to help evaluate your diet. Overall, make sure your plate contains lean meats such as beef, chicken, or eggs, as well as vegetarian proteins such as legumes, seeds, and tofu. In order to get your vitamins, your plate should also include a hearty serving of colorful vegetables. Remember that the color of a vegetable often indicates its nutrient profile, so limiting yourself to lettuce and green peppers will not suffice to meet your vitamin and mineral requirements. Carbohydrates such as potatoes and rice should be eaten sparingly and should not be the focus of your plate. Carbohydrates are widely regarded as an unnecessary nutrient these days, but they are required for an immediate source of energy, so including small amounts at each meal is perfectly acceptable. In general, it is best to avoid processed foods and anything with unfamiliar ingredients. Additives and fillers are frequently chemically based and require more work to filter and flush out by your liver and kidneys. Extra work means more stress on the body, which can trigger the same stress response as a physical threat, albeit on a lower level. It is also important to reduce stress caused by potentially inflammatory foods. While everyone reacts differently to different foods, be on the lookout for potential food allergies and sensitivities. Your skin and GI tract are good indicators of a problem. You may have food sensitivity if you have unexplained rashes, even if they are minor and only in a few spots, or if you have occasional bouts of indigestion. These things are frequently overlooked because they do not pose a significant threat to health or cause immediate distress, but they may cause you more harm in the long run. Your GI tract is your immune system's first line of defense. As bacteria, toxins, or harmful substances enter your GI tract, the lining flushes them out while absorbing nutrients. If you have a food allergy or sensitivity, exposure to the allergen damages the GI tract lining, reducing its ability to separate good from the bad. Toxins and bacteria enter the bloodstream as they pass through the GI lining, and some of them reach the brain, causing chemical imbalances and impairing brain performance, often leading to mental health problems. These foreign substances also elicit an immune response, increasing the body's natural stress hormones and increasing your risk of depression and anxiety. Recent research is beginning to establish stronger links between underlying food and environmental allergens and seemingly unrelated neurological and mental problems. So keep this in mind. Because everyone is different, the only true way to determine if something in your food or environment is affecting you is to avoid exposure. In the case of food, seek assistance from a qualified professional, such as a registered dietitian, in eliminating potentially sensitive foods. Best applications for CBT and beyond. You should now be fully aware of the wide range of treatments that CBT can be used for, as well as how to quickly establish a variety of treatment options for many of the symptoms listed below. Anger issues and anger management. CBT is effective because it takes into account not only thoughts, but also behavior and emotions. Anger issues can be quickly resolved by teaching mindfulness in conjunction with behavior modification and negative thought suppression. Anxiety disorders. There are many different types of anxiety disorders that can be quickly controlled because CBT effectively addresses the root causes and triggers of anxiety. Panic attacks are extremely intense and can make a person feel as if they are about to die. Understanding the underlying causes of triggers and how to suppress and eventually eliminate them is extremely beneficial to anyone suffering. Dysfunctional issues. The list is long, and CBT can help with a wide range of dysfunctional issues, particularly those affecting children, teenagers, and adults. Childhood problems. Many people suffer from childhood problems well into adulthood, particularly when dealing with abusive homes, anxiety, related issues, and inadequate nurturing that can occur at the hands of abusive or poor parents. CBT can address the root causes of trauma and allow a person to deal with it in a powerful and effective manner. Depression. Mindfulness training, as well as the ability to refocus one's thoughts, feelings, and emotions, is a powerful tool that CBT provides to people who are depressed. Few therapies have such a high success rate, and depression does not have to be a permanent disorder. Addictive issues such as drugs and alcohol. CBT's true strength is demonstrated by its ability to relieve people of the need for addictive drugs and/or alcohol, as well as addictive behaviors. We can influence events in a person's life and prevent relapses because we combine the entire spectrum of emotions, behavior, and thinking. Eating disorders. Behavior modification, in conjunction with the identification of eating triggers, is a powerful tool that CBT can present in any situation. This includes the addictive personality and how to deal with it effectively, as well as deprogram these triggers. Health issues that cause psychological disorders. Many people suffer from a variety of health disorders, such as obesity, that can also be linked to mental health issues. The powerful combination of behavior modification and the ability to reprogram how we think and then grow our emotions in a positive way can help solve many common health problems and allow us to regain control. Mood swings can be a form of depressive disorder, but mood swings are much more common and are equivalent to bipolar disorder issues. In this case, imbalances can be corrected through behavior modification. Diet, medications, and the emphasis can be shifted to mindful therapy and meditative practices to help control volatile emotions. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Surprisingly, OCD can be managed through behavior modification and more mindful focusing. A primary function of CBT is to assist someone in reducing instances of repetitive negative behavior and focusing on growth toward other productive uses of their time. Phobias of all kinds. Exposure therapy, combined with behavior modification and cognitive therapy, works quickly to eliminate phobias of all kinds. CBT works wonders in this situation because all elements are brought to bear, and fears can be eliminated quickly. Post-traumatic stress disorder. We've also gone over in depth how CBT can help people suffering from PTSD recover completely and see the events of their trauma in a new light. Acceptance therapy, as an extension of CBT, combined with mindfulness, can teach people with relationship and sexual disorder problems how to not only cope, but also relearn the importance of connecting with their mate. Sleep issues, as an extension, CBT would teach the importance of regular exercise as well as the necessary sleep patterns for good health. The importance of regular sleep is instilled in the person undergoing therapy. Please keep in mind that this is only a partial list of some of the most common mental health disorders that plague our society and that CBT can help with. It is up to you, as a therapist or even a layperson, to make the necessary decisions to determine which aspect of CBT works best for which situation. As always, competent therapists, particularly those trained in CBT, are required to move forward and use the therapy because it is highly effective and can be used in the shortest amount of time to effect the greatest change. Consider the best extension of CBT therapy for you, your practice, and, of course, your patients. Working specifically on anxiety, pessimism, and stress. Anxiety is a word that most people are familiar with, but interestingly, not many people can define them. Anxiety is defined as a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something, or perhaps the uncertainty of an outcome. Anxiety is often a disorder that affects how we feel or behave. This condition can even cause physical symptoms. However, if you are suffering from such an impairment, you do not have to accept it. Anxiety can be managed. The most effective way to treat is to participate in some therapy sessions. Some of the therapies to consider include cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, psychotherapy, and exposure therapy. The thing about these therapies is that they will help you control your anxiety and even conquer your fears. Anxiety disorder treatment. Why should I go through some arduous therapy session just to treat the disorder when I can simply buy medication and achieve the same result in the comfort of my own home? Some may wonder, that can be an excellent approach, but the problem is that it is only temporary. This is because the medication will only treat the physical symptoms, leaving the underlying causes of your anxiety and nervousness unaffected. Therapy has been shown in studies to be an effective way to deal with anxiety. How? It simply provides you with the tools to overcome your fear and instructs you on how to use them. Most people consider therapies to be long-term. This is not the case with CBT-based anxiety treatment. Surprisingly, many people are usually fine within the first 8 to 10 months. The duration of these therapies is generally determined by the severity of the disorder as well as its type. Anxiety disorders include generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, obsessive compulsive disorder, OT, panic disorder, and others. It is also clear that therapy should be tailored to the individual's specific symptoms. A person with GAD cannot attend the same therapy session as someone with OXY. As previously stated, there are various types of anxiety therapies to consider. The two most effective treatments, however, are cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy. These therapies can be used alone or in conjunction with other forms of treatment. Another thing to keep in mind is that these therapies can be administered to individuals or to groups of people who share the same anxiety issues. We'll go over the CBT portion. Anxiety, cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is primarily used to treat negative cognitions, or thoughts and beliefs, as well as maladaptive behaviors associated with anxiety. CBT aims to combine the best aspects of behavioral and cognitive therapies. This therapy has two main components, as the name implies, cognitive therapy and behavioral therapy. The part that involves one's thoughts is cognitive therapy. This section investigates how negative thoughts contribute to anxiety. Behavioral treatment, on the other hand, examines one's behavior and reactions in anxiety, provoking situations. It should be noted that this type of treatment focuses on our thoughts, rather than events. This is due to the fact that one's thoughts determine one's feelings. Consider the event of landing a job in a place where you never imagined you'd work. This event can elicit a variety of emotions, which are determined by how you perceive the situation. As an example, the realization that you are fortunate to have landed in such a position will fill you with joy. The realization that you are not qualified for such a high-level position may make you feel unworthy of the opportunity, which can lead to stress. The example above depicts the same situation but two very different feelings that can be achieved simply by changing how you think. People with anxiety disorders frequently have negative thoughts that cloud their decisions, leading to negative emotions such as worry, nervousness, or fear. Cognitive behavioral therapy is usually beneficial for such people because it helps them identify and combat negative thoughts, thereby avoiding negative emotions that cause anxiety. CBT Thought Challenging. Thought challenging is a CBT technique that helps people consider situations from multiple perspectives by using real-life evidence. It entails confronting negative thoughts and replacing them with more positive and realistic viewpoints. This method usually consists of 3 steps, namely, recognizing negative thoughts. Anxiety and negative thoughts are a dangerous combination that can lead to serious problems. People suffering from anxiety disorders take things or events more seriously than others. A person who is afraid of dogs, for example, will regard touching them as potentially fatal. Someone else will see this as safe if he or she approaches the dog in a friendly manner. This step can be difficult because identifying one's fear is not always easy. The only question that remains is what you were feeling when you began to feel anxious. This is the only certain way to determine your level of fear. Overcoming negative thoughts. Once the fears and negative thoughts have been identified, it is time to put them to the test. What exactly does this mean? Essentially means assessing negative thoughts. Why do these thoughts come to you naturally? At this point, one must question the evidence for these negative thoughts and try to identify any unhelpful beliefs that may be causing them. One strategy for combating these thoughts is to weigh the benefits and drawbacks of worrying or fearing something. Negative thoughts are being replaced with positive ones. After you've challenged these negative thoughts, it's time to replace them with more realistic and positive thoughts. If this proves difficult, you may also find some calming thoughts or words to say to yourself if you are in an anxious situation. However, it is usually easier said than done to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. This is because negative thoughts are often the result of a long-held belief that requires great courage and time to overcome. As a result, cognitive behavioral therapy includes independent practice at home. Stress management self-help. Why is stress management beneficial? Stress can have an impact on your life, making you unhappy and thus less productive. It has an impact on your emotional equilibrium, as well as your ability to think correctly and clearly. As a result, effective stress management can go a long way toward lifting a huge burden off your shoulders. How do you know whether or not you're stressed? This type of mental pressure is associated with a variety of thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and even behaviors. Some examples are thoughts. This will never happen to me. It's not right. Someone should be able to assist me. This is excessive for me. Feelings angry, depressed, hopeless, impatient. Sensations physical. A physical sensation is a physical reaction to stress that is caused by the adrenaline response of the body. As a result, some of the physical sensations associated with stress are breathing more quickly. It was hot and humid. Restless. Bowel issues, usually with brief pains. Difficulty concentrating because one's thoughts are elsewhere, a headache. Behavior. Sleep deprivation. Appetite loss. One is unable to make a decision. Drug use. Or even an increase in drug use, for example. If one is accustomed to smoking, there will be a greater proclivity to smoke. Making beneficial changes. This is intended to help people manage their stress levels. To effect positive change, a variety of steps can be taken. They are as follows. Determine the stressors or sources of stress in your life. It is the first step toward positive change. This step is not as simple as it appears. Finding the source of chronic stress can be difficult. To help you out, here are some questions you can ask yourself to determine the source of your stress. What causes you to be stressed? 1. When I'm stressed, where do I go? 2. What do I do when I'm stressed? 3. When I'm stressed, who am I with? 4. What difference can I make? Some people may notice that there is little they can do to change certain situations. These minor adjustments may be just what you need, so don't be afraid to try them. Determine the factors that contribute to the problem's persistence. After you've identified the causes of your stress, it's time to look into the factors that keep this problem going. Different ways of thinking. This is primarily a mental step. That is, all you have to change is your attitude toward various situations. Here are some questions to ask yourself when confronted with a specific case to help you improve your thinking. What am I reacting to? 1. What exactly is going to happen here? 2. Is this true or false? 3. How useful is it for me to think in this manner? 4. Is it really worth it? 5. Is the threat overestimated? 6. What significance am I assigning to this situation? 7. Is there a different way to look at this? 8. What would I tell someone else in this situation? 9. Can I do something different here? Once you've asked yourself these questions and honestly answered them, you'll be able to think positively about a situation. Trying something new. This step will aid in the reduction of both stress and anxiety. Why? When under stress, it is common to believe that many demands cannot be met with the available resources. As a result, doing things differently, such as considering which applications are most important, can help reduce stress. Doing things differently, on the other hand, can help reduce anxiety because you can now choose to make time for yourself each day to relax or just have fun. One may also choose to strike a healthy balance by scheduling time to work, rest, and do other things that interest them. Anxiety, negative thinking, and stress management techniques. There are several methods for dealing with anxiety, negative thinking, and stress. 1. Recognize your personal thinking style. This is the first step to taking to change the negative thoughts that one normally has. One must precisely understand how they think. Here are some thinking styles that might be useful to you. You are a polarized or black and white thinker if you believe that if you fail at one thing, you have failed at everything. You are a person who jumps to conclusions if you tend to know what people think of you and why they act the way they do without them saying so. You are a catastrophizing thinker if you always expect disaster to strike no matter what. This type of thinker is always asking, what if? 2. Understanding of thought distortions. Once you've identified your thinking style, you can determine whether or not it's a thought distortion. Types of thought distortions are similar to those listed in the first step. Catastrophizing, making extremely negative predictions, and making black or white judgments are all examples. 3. Recognizability of rumination. What exactly is rumination? It is a thoughtful or deep thought about something. When people ruminate, their ability to solve problems is significantly reduced. As a result, it is critical to recognize this stage during problem solving and avoid it at all costs. If avoiding ruminating is difficult, the best thing to do is to accept that you are having certain thoughts. Recognize that they may not be correct, and then allow them to pass in your own mind rather than trying to block them out. 4. Handle criticism. In life, it is impossible to avoid criticism. On the other hand, if not properly managed, it can cause unnecessary anxiety. As a result, one must be able to learn to deal with criticism. CBT can help people learn how to deal with criticism. During the therapy session, try to determine whether the blame is constructive or not before deciding whether to use it or avoid it. Always apply evidence to your thoughts so that you can make an informed decision. 5. Master the art of mindfulness. Learning the art of mindfulness will assist you in gaining control over your thoughts and emotions. This is because art teaches you to see your thoughts and feelings as objects floating by that you can stop, observe, or even ignore. We'll go over this later. 6. The ability to speak gently to oneself about flaws and mistakes. The tendency to criticize oneself harshly in the face of flaws has proven to be insignificant. This is due to the fact that, in most cases, it leads to rumination, which leads to hazy problem-solving solutions. Conversely, research has shown that speaking calmly to yourself can increase self-motivation and make a person feel much better. 7. Avoiding thought interruptions. Mindfulness is the polar opposite of thought. Stopping. This is due to the act of actively seeking out any negative thoughts and forcing them to be eliminated. The issue with this act is that the more you stop thinking about it, the more it will come up during problem solving. Avoiding such thoughts and practicing mindfulness is thus a much better option. 8. Understanding your mental diary. What exactly are thinking journals? They are tools that can be used to change any negative thoughts that you may have. The significance of these thinking diaries is that they assist in identifying and determining one's negative thinking styles, allowing one to gain a better understanding of how their beliefs affect their emotions. These diaries are necessary for a cognitive behavioral treatment plan if you want to capture your thoughts. There will be more practical before the conclusion. Conclusion. Thank you for obtaining this book. It is my sincere hope that people can form relationships with themselves. There are too many broken people in the world. Despite the internet and its wealth of information, there is still not enough knowledge available to help them heal from their wounds. Many of us have been emotionally and mentally crippled as a result of the tragedies we have experienced. We've gone from living to merely survive. We were designed for more. I want to thrive, not just survive, and I want these things for all of us. Emotional healing begins within, and there is currently no surgery that can correct this. Despite our apparent helplessness, we have been given the ability to turn things around for ourselves. The choice is the game changer in all of this. What do you intend to do with your life today? Are you going to sit back and accept whatever is thrown your way? Or are you? These are the choices you face today, and your response will determine the rest of your life. I hope you find the strength to choose life every day. Whatever the rest of the world thinks of you, the simple truth is that you deserve better. And, while your struggles may have made you feel isolated, know that you are never alone. Millions of people all over the world share stories that are similar to your own, and many of them have done more than simply survive their ordeals. They have remained on top. And what's remarkable about their stories is that their victories did not come from wealth or a change in their circumstances. It was due to a shift in their attitude. They recognized their power and used it. The transformation did not occur overnight, and the transformation did not stop when they won. It is a process that occurs on a daily basis, and they thrive in the midst of it. The best part is that they are not the sole provider of this service. You can also recover from your loss and repair any relationships that have been harmed. Your life does not have to be defined by tragedy and trauma. Rather, characterize the things that have gone wrong. You can completely change your life in 21 days, and there is no better time to start than right now. I wish to congratulate those who have already begun. Be consistent, diligent, and above all, deliberate.